Do I have to?
Yeah, you're ready. Go ahead.
Gavel.
You don't have to, but you can just start.
I, Nicholas Pardue, hereby reconvene the Board of Education special meeting in open session at 5:08 p.m. Please note that this meeting is being both recorded and live streamed for public viewing. We have a quorum present with all board members in attendance. I would like to welcome the community members in attendance this evening. As a reminder, governing board meetings are a business meeting of the board held in public, and although public participation is encouraged, it is not the public's meeting. It is the duty of the board president and/or clerk of the board to maintain an orderly, respectful, and peaceful meeting where all perspectives, voices, and opinions are welcome. Please refrain from speaking out while another person has the floor. At the appropriate time on the agenda, individuals wishing to provide public comment on items appearing on the agenda will be called upon, one at a time, to do so in accordance with Board Bylaw 9323. The board cannot and will not respond to non-agendized items, but a staff member will reach out to you on matters that may need to be reviewed as appropriate. The board met in closed session to a conference with legal counsel regarding potential litigation. No formal action was taken. I now call on Megan Lewis to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
President Pardue, just before you proceed, just a notice to the community and anybody who may be watching. As we all know, we've experienced some power outages recently. Even in this building's had some recent power outages. If the power be shut off again today, because it's happened without warning, this building has power, or this room has power, but we'll have to take a brief recess to reconnect the stream if the power shuts off in the building. So just as an FYI.
All right, approval of the agenda. I call for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I hear a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Hearing none opposed? All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Student representative reports. Call on the following students. Oh, and that's not what I'm supposed to read. So with student representative reports, we have Victoria Volmar from Murrieta Mesa. I hope I pronounced that right. Volmar.
Victoria, thanks for attending. We know that you're kind of a last-minute fill-in, so thank you.
Yeah, of course. Good evening. My name is Victoria Volmar, and I'm representing Mesa. So some of our activities that we have on campus is our Winter Showcase, which is an event where our dance team and dance classes have an opportunity to present their skills to the rest of our school. Our Unified Leadership Program held a caroling event and concert for the rest of our Mesa students to enjoy. And Scholar Bowl is coming up, which is a trivia game where our students have the opportunity to win a $1,000 scholarship. Renaissance Leadership will be recognizing our academic scholars with a retro arcade-themed rally this semester. My bad. Student of the Month was held today, which gives our teachers an opportunity to recognize 2 students, 1 boy and 1 girl, every month for their academic excellence. Our winter sports athletics are now about halfway through their season and doing amazing. Silent 7 is our biggest event of the year. It's our largest basketball and a Mesa original event. We had about 2,000 students and parents attend this year. It's a costume game, and we get to storm the court once our team reaches 8 points. Performing arts. Our drama club is putting on a production of Mamma Mia, and our band is about to perform their winter concert. Our prom venue was revealed by our junior class and is being held at Kona Kai Resort on April 12th. Little Rams is held every football and basketball season where our younger kids get to experience what being a part of Mesa Cheer is like and being involved in fun activities like stunting. Oops. Our Senate leadership is reaching out to Rail Ranch Elementary, where we get to engage in pen pal letters and get to make those connections with our younger students there. And I'd like to thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice job. And next up, we have Gavin Larson from Murrieta Canyon Academy.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. It's good to be back in school, I guess. But yeah, so let's get started. So, as you may know, our school is very much different from the other amazing high schools out there in the district. So, MCA, we get a lot of new students every semester. I mean, usually a lot of new students every semester. So, here, the first day of school, coming back to school, Mr. Bean, our principal, and Ms. Quick, our assistant principal, gave everybody a talk, just the do's and don'ts of MCA, and it was pretty good for to come back and all reconnect with all my classmates and everybody that I'm friends with, and they just went over the school policies and expectations and what it means to soar. So for academics, where the seniors are starting the senior culminating projects. Those are due. There will be represented February 3rd and 4th. I luckily am not a senior, so I won't have to be doing them. But I will have to be doing the junior testing, the reflective essay, which I'm pretty happy about. I'm not too sad about doing that. I think it'd be a nice thing to do because I love writing. But here's the rubric to go over the grades. This is actually a sample from one of my friends that actually graduated early this last semester. So I mean, a lot of the seniors are doing it pretty much every single day. They're working on them, and they complain about doing it a lot, but they still do it. And I'm happy for all my seniors. They're their last couple months of school. So it was different with MCA. As to refresh you guys, as you guys may know, we do have a guidance period, which is 5th period, which we do have every day. Guidance makes us get back on track, do work from other classes. It's also some office hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays that we can do. It's a very unique way. I'm very grateful for this thing that we have. Guidance really helped me get back on track and do everything that I need to do to pass my classes. And for me, it's leadership. I love leadership. I love Ms. Kowalski. I love everybody in my class. We do all the posters and everything. It's really fun. But guidance is also it's really a homeroom class where everybody just does work that they're supposed to do, and it's very like team bonding and team building type stuff that everybody can do to pass their classes. So our activities, and Mr. Knapp, our art photography teacher, held a contest to create a T-shirt for our school. The one on the left was our back to school night shirt, and then the one on the right was someone designed our leadership shirt, and so everybody in leadership got a shirt, and everybody that went to back to school night last semester got a shirt. I know that a lot. I know it was a tough decision because I know that all how do you say it? All the other ones were very great. So I mean, it was a tough decision, but all in all, I think the shirts came out great. I think I think the leadership one was the better leadership one. We all chose as a leadership class. I think that one was the better one, but it was good. I'm kind of sad that my shirt didn't get picked, to be honest, but it's not up to me. So our Phoenix Nest. So in leadership, how I said we make posters, we give the teachers birthday posters because there's not really that many kids at our school, so we can do these little things. Here is our leadership class giving the wonderful Miss Holzer her birthday poster they gave her last week. Everybody loves Miss Holzer. She's like the sweetest woman in the world, and she had like the best reaction. Like, there's her right there holding the poster. She doesn't look a day over 20. So we all love Ms. Holzer over here, and it's just we make the posters and we go to every single guidance class and have every single student sign it and say a message to her. Yeah, it's really amazing. We love seeing the teachers' reactions. We all get a picture with them, but also we did do the safety drills and the earthquake drill. I don't like because I had to go under the desk, and I'm too big to fit under the desk. It hurt my neck. I'm not gonna lie, but then we had to do the fire drills right after that, and the fire drills, they hurt my ears too. But I mean, the lockdown, the fire drills, all that drills. We obviously had to do them, but hopefully it doesn't have to happen in real life, but we practice those things because we have to. So thank you guys. Looking forward to the new semester.
That's awesome.
All right, thank you.
Told my students, just put your head under the desk because you can't fit your whole body.
All right, next we have Taylor Arun from Vista Murrieta.
Good afternoon. My name is Taylor Arun. I am here in place of Isabella Acosta, who could not make it here today. I'm excited to share what Vista Murrieta High School has been up to throughout the past month and what we have coming up. So for activities on the ranch, we had our senior panoramic photo where over 800 seniors were in attendance. This took place in the stadium. And then our drama program has been working very hard over the winter break to create their set and rehearse for their new drama production, The Addams Family. This will be live February 20th through the 22nd. And then tomorrow coming up, we have our Crazy 8 game. So the concept of this game, for those of you who are not familiar, is similar to Mesa's. We stay silent for the first 7 points that our boys varsity basketball team makes. And then we, as you could guess, go crazy for the 8th one, and we celebrate their points. And then we have our Club Rush coming up. So one really special thing about Vista is that we have almost 100 clubs on campus. There's a spot for nearly every student, and this is a great opportunity for the clubs to showcase to the campus what they have to offer. And we have our honor band concert coming up at Murrieta Mesa High School on January 25th. And we have our Mr. Bronco signups. So this happens yearly, and our theme for this year is Men in Black. It is an opportunity for the senior boys to showcase their talents and just overall have a good time. As far as academics go, we did early senior culminating projects for early graduates. This was completed before winter break, and this image on the left is a student displaying one of her designs during the presentation. On the right side, we have one of our teachers, Mr. Bowen, guiding his graphic design students on how to make an eye-catching design. Along with that, we have Mrs. Chesler inviting a guest speaker to the CTE education course to share their experiences and give insight to future educators. And Mr. Daniel Baldwin was one of the MVUSD administrators who participated in this. For more CTE, we had our sports medicine program who will hold an expo during the day on Tuesday, February 4th, and students will be able to select different sessions with guest speakers from multiple medical fields to gain more insight into the various pathways. For our winter athletics, the girls wrestling team has a match today at Murrieta Mesa High School, and the boys wrestling have, for some reason the names are cut off, but one in the middle on the top are our boys wrestling team, and they had a league duel yesterday at Mesa, and they have a varsity Trojan battle tournament coming up on the 25th. Our boys basketball team has been killing it. They beat Murrieta Mesa at their Silent Seven game this past Friday, and they have a game against Temecula Valley tomorrow. And then our girls basketball team also has a game against Temecula Valley tomorrow right before the boys, so we'll all be there in attendance to cheer them on. Our girls water polo team had their senior night on January 17th where they played Chaparral. And our unified team have a bocce ball conference at Vista Murrieta High School on January 31st. And last but not least, we have our soccer teams who both played Chaparral High School yesterday, and the girls won with a score of 3-0. They have been killing it lately, and so have the boys with a score of 4-0. They're both playing Temecula Valley, and we are excited for that as well. And for student support, right over here, if you'd like to wave so that everyone can see you, we are welcoming Officer Cooney. He has 13 years of experience in law enforcement, including 5 with the Murrieta Police Department, and this is his first year as a school resource officer, and he is excited to be assigned to Vista Murrieta High School. And lastly, for culture and climate at Vista, we have the rodeo. So the rodeo is an incoming freshman night for Army Broncos to get more familiar with the campus and ask any questions that they may have. We also did our blood drive yesterday to help out the community, and we thank those who donated and those who helped this go on. And we also did our high school kickoff at Dorothy McElhaney Middle School and Warm Springs Middle School. Thank you guys for your time.
This might come through. There I am. Cool. Next, we have Megan Lewis from Murrieta Valley High School.
Good afternoon, board and all. I'm so excited to share what MV has been up to this past month and what we have coming up. First, we're going to go over academics, winter sports, climate and culture, and then last but not least, upcoming events. Our math programs have completed the second STAR assessments. Along with that, several administrators attended the STAR/Freckle training in I think late December. And then our grade levels all have been working on their projects. So freshmen, they are writing a paragraph. Our sophomores are doing the performance task essays. And juniors are doing the junior reflective task. In case you don't know what that is, junior students have the option to pick between 5 prompts, and that's gonna help them, they have to write 2 essays between 300 and 400 words, and they have to submit that, and that's for the district, and it's really fun. It's not that bad. I mean, picking between the 5 prompts is pretty bad, but they're not too hard, and that's gonna help us prepare for what we wanna do after high school. And our seniors are getting ready to present their senior cumulative projects February 3rd and 4th. Those are half days, so I'm super excited about that. In case you don't know what that is just basically where senior students have to put together a PowerPoint on what their plan is after high school, whether that's committing to a 4-year, JC, a trade, or figuring something out. And then we also have before school tutoring and office hours, which is Thursday and Fridays. Winter sports, boys basketball, they're doing amazing things this season. They're currently 3-2, and with the overall record of 14-9, they are currently second in the Southwestern Division. They play tomorrow at Great Oak at 7 p.m. We are super excited for them, and we cannot wait to see what they can continue to do the rest of the season. Girls soccer's continue to impress us this season. They're currently 2-2. They're currently 3-2, and they're not far behind TV to hopefully take second place in league. Their overall record is 7-4. Our girls are playing against really good teams, and they are also playing tomorrow against Great Oak at home at 7 p.m. That's gonna be a really fun game where students are gonna be spread across and Murrieta and Temecula, but it's gonna be super fun to watch these teams win or I'll compete. Boys soccer is currently 4th in league, and they also play the Wolfpack tomorrow at Great Oak at 7 p.m. on the field. We are super excited to see what they do with the rest of their season. For boys and girls wrestling, they just had their senior night on the 21st, which is this past Tuesday. They have an upcoming duel at Chaparral, and we're so excited to see how they finish this season for us. And we have the honor of holding CIF playoffs this year. Dance, they won first place at USA Regional competition for game day dance, and they are also headed to Florida with their co-ed cheer team in 4 days. We were so excited to see what they do. They have a blast every year, and they always amaze us. Girls water polo just had their senior night as well. They're currently 8-1 in league, and they are currently 14-9 overall. They won league. They ended first in Southwestern Division, and it was super amazing. They're back to CIF playoffs, and that's super exciting. They're still going strong. Hopefully, they get the 28th year of winning CIF. Could be wrong. So all the swim is not a winter sport. They did hold tryouts December 14th through 17th. They are continuously preparing for their season. They are doing little meets. I remembered the word. They're doing meets, and they're continuing to practice and train hard for the season. Girls basketball, last time I left you guys, I told you that they were headed up to Arizona. They did end up taking first place in the Arizona Bullhead City Holiday Shootout, and that's super impressive. The girl on the right side, Valerie Lorenzen, she took the title of being the all-tournament MVP, and that's super impressive, especially because she's a junior, and that tournament was pretty big, so she had to compete for that title. And they also play tomorrow at 5:30 at Great Oak. Climate and culture, we had the Sizzler Student of the Month, which was Zoe Norris. She's extremely involved on campus. She's in our IB diploma program, plus a dance team, very committed in, I think, 5 clubs. Our winter choir and band showcase took place over winter break. It was super fun. I had a band day. Couldn't blow the right, hot air. I don't know how they do it. It's just so hard because you have to be really consistent. So we had that. We also had our finals week dress-up days, which the last day was pajama day, and we had an ugly sweater day, and we had a crazy hat day, and that was super fun seeing everyone participate. We also had our second athletic signing day. The end of last semester, we had 4 boys from football sign, one of them being Bear Bachmeyer, who is also committed now to Stanford to continue playing football with his brother Tiger. We had a senior parent night, which took place also this past Tuesday, the 21st, basically giving our senior parents more information about the activities and graduation requirements for their students. We had our culture fair and what's it called? Fundraisers. It was super fun because we had a lot of food, and it was clubs got to keep the money instead of having to share it, and it was just a bigger thing, and it was really fun, and that took place December 12th, I think that was the Thursday, and it was really fun, and that was during office hours. We also had our winter rally, and that was super fun to highlight this winter sports and see them play some fun games. We also had a student recognition lunch. In case you don't know what that is, our campus security team gets to choose a student or a few students that are doing things the right way, and they get to cook lunch, and they get to have it during lunch instead of eating school food, which I know they enjoyed. Our virtual enterprise class did have a competition. They are currently heading back from a competition today, and the last competition, I think they took 4th or 3rd place. And then this competition, Kevin Newman, a senior, took 3rd place in the rapid prototyping competition, and that's super impressive. We also held Dancing with the Nighthawks. That was super fun. Zoe Norris also won that with her brother Dean. They did an amazing tap routine, and it was super fun to watch. We had our mock trial class compete in a competition, and we also had a staff Christmas lunch. So here I have some of the pictures. In the top right-hand corner, we have athletes Miley Thunstrom, who was committed to a D1 college for volleyball, and then Dorian Hughes, who was one of our football players. They are both going on to do great things with their sports academically and physically. And then we have our December Sizzler Student of the Month, and then right below that, we have our January Student Sizzler of the Month. And then we have our choir and band pictures. And then in the top left corner, we have our staff campus lunch for Christmas. Below that, we have our football players signing. And then I'm curious if this video is going to play, but this is a little highlight from a sophomore.
Hi, my name is Val. I'm a forward, and I can also play right wing. If you had one song that describes soccer for you, what would you choose?
I would do Fancy by Drake.
Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Nail done, hair done, everything did. Nails done, hair done, everything did. Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Oh, you fancy, huh? Nail done, hair done, everything did. Nails done, hair done, everything did. Oh, you fancy, huh? Getting ready, so I know we gonna be here.
As you can see, our soccer teams have a lot of fun, and a lot of our students are now getting into photography. So that was made by a junior, Aaron Inez, and he does a lot of pictures, and it's super fun seeing all of our students figure out what they want to do and what they enjoy and putting it together. So upcoming events, we have our blood drive next Wednesday, the 29th, and if you sign up early, which ends Monday, you can get an In-N-Out gift card. So I know a lot of students are signing up for that because, I mean, let's face it, who doesn't love free food? We also have our high school showcase where we go as an ASB program to our middle school, which is Thompson. We go during the 8th graders lunch and we give them flyers and show them what we have to offer and what they can get into. So that is also taking place next Wednesday. We have our spring sports coming up, and we have our cultural rally coming up as well on Monday, the 27th. We have an all clubs meeting. If you don't know what that is, it's something new that our ASB program has decided to implement this year. Basically, we have a lot of clubs on campus. Some of them don't get as much recognition as we would like or as they would like. So at least once a month, our ASB program comes together, sends an email out to all the clubs, and we meet in our ASB room, which is the Hawk Rock, and we talk to them, ask them if they want anything or is there anything we can help them with, and it's super fun because we get to hear what they have planned and what we can help them to improve our school and get more people participating and stuff. We have our Club Rush coming up the 10th of February, and that's, in case you don't know, we have 4 Club Rushes each year. We have 2 first semester and 2 second semester, so it gives our students a lot more options and time to join a new club, and it's not just like, oh, well, you didn't sign up, you can't join. It's more like wide open, and they get more options in case a new club joins, and they can have options to sign up for that. We have our school site council meeting coming up February 11th, which is a Tuesday. We're going to go over a few other plans from last school year and new things for this school year, and I'm super excited for that. We have our drama spring play, hosting roles and auditions, and they're getting back to them soon, and that will be starting the 3rd of March, well, March 12th and ending the 19th. Thank you.
Any board members have any comments?
Great job, everybody.
I would just say that I'm so impressed with your poise, and it's a great opportunity for you to speak in front of this crowd, and it's neat that you guys were able to fill in. I thought you did a great job. So at this time, if you guys want to go do homework, you can stay, you can hang out and see what we're doing. It's completely up to you, but thank you so much for your reports. You did wonderful. All right, next we have public comments. And we have 2. The first speaker will be Jose Carreno.
Good evening, Mr. Andrews, board members. Before I get to my main point, I'd like to congratulate the new board members, especially Ms. Schmidt. Did a great job. And the most articulate, most passionate, Ms. Briggs. Ms. Perdue, you look good as the board president. Looking forward to your leadership. So to get to my main point, a few months ago, I spoke about the interests that board members are really representing. At the time, I spoke about 2 board members who were heavily funded by the unions, got thousands of dollars, Ms. Young and the former Ms. Lund that used to be here right there. So, Ms. Munoz, I don't know much about you. Honestly, I've heard a lot about you, but I don't know much about you. What I do know is, upon doing a little research, 497 forms from the County of Riverside website says that you received $5,000 from the teachers union on 2 occasions, $10,000. That's a whole mess of money. So, like I said, I don't know much about what you what you're going to be like, but I'm expecting that in the future, your future votes will represent the interest of the parents, the children, the community, and not just those who sponsored your election. Looking forward to a really good season with this current school board that we have. And once again, I'll be watching all of you, looking forward to great things, but I'll be watching all of you and commenting as appropriate. The other thing I'd like to say is I have 5 children, almost 6, not children, grandchildren that attend the school board or the district, and their parents would like to come to the meetings, but it's just, if they want to speak, it takes quite a while. And you know, we've all been parents, so we've got a lot of stuff to do out there. So I'm hoping there's a way, if we want to encourage more parental participation on these meetings, is if we could somehow make it a little easier. And I'm sure you guys can put your big brains together and come up with some ways to make it so it's not so time consuming if they want to come and speak publicly. Okay, thank you all.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have Mrs. Carolina Quiros.
Hello, all. I am Carolina, and I am a mom of an 8th grade at Thompson. So I'm specifically wanted to comment on the redistricting options, which of course very important for a parent. And in particular, of course, I wanted to highlight as a parent of an 8th grader transitioning to high school, such an important stage for them, right? Where their performance, both academically and socially, would have a direct impact in their college future and their adult future. So for me, it's such an important thing to come in and make a comment on, of course, my preference for that smooth transition. For him, it would be, of course, Valley, Murrieta. That's his current trajectory. And really voice my support for option 1 or option 2, specifically for Thompson students and 8th graders. And my other comment / question that maybe someone could reach out, or maybe just something for all of you to keep in mind, is how can we as parents, I know I've talked to other parents that have similar thoughts and concerns, and they're just wondering, some of them work so they can't make it to this meeting, right? But are there other ways other than through the surveys where parents can express and verbalize their preference for the options? Okay. Thank you.
I'd like to answer that directly since we only have 2 comments.
Yeah.
But all of us here on the board represent parents. And so you email and reach out to all the board members or specific ones that represent your area. I think I'm trustee area 1, so Thompson's actually in my area, so you can email me directly about that. And everyone would love to get back to you and discuss whatever issues are going up. And we'll be talking about it in a little bit when that item comes up on the agenda.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming out. All right, that's a record. I think since I've been on the board, 2 public comments. So next up, we have employee organization reports. I have Lisa Murray, president of MEA.
There we go. Not that I need a microphone. Good evening, Dr. Andrus and members of the board, and welcome back. After a restful winter break, MEA members hit the ground running with the jam-packed professional development day on Monday, January 13th. I was able to attend several training sessions at different sites, and I hope some of you were able to do the same. As always, the safety and well-being of our students and staff is a top priority. As such, I was excited to be able to attend a training at Thompson Middle School on the district's new Raptor Alert app that is being piloted at 3 school sites this semester. This new technology allows staff members to quickly and easily summon for assistance or even call a site-wide lockdown from their cell phone, classroom desktop computer, or other mobile device in the event of an emergency on campus. I know that Mr. Tukwa and Mr. Pratt and their teams have been working diligently with the Raptor company to get this app modified for our district's safety and security needs. And from what I've seen, it's going to be an incredible improvement in the efforts to increase the safety and well-being of our students and staff across the district when the app hard launches next fall. I do find it extremely discouraging and disheartening, however, that one of the Team Assist alerts in the Raptor app is designated for encounters with an irate parent. We talk a lot in this room about parental rights, and while I agree 100% that parents do have rights when it comes to the education and care of their children, I want to make it very clear that parents absolutely do not have the right to bully, harass, belittle, berate, verbally or physically assault, threaten, scream at, curse out, defame, slander, slur, or use aggressive or threatening body language with the educators in this district. On behalf of the members of Marietta Educators Association, I am asking the board for your unwavering commitment to this matter. I have already witnessed for myself the elevated level of support that district administrators have committed to in these adverse and frightening circumstances, and I truly hope that that level of backing continues all the way up the chain to each one of you. We as educators cannot partner with parents the way we want or need to, nor can we provide the highest level of education for our students when we are concerned about our own safety. Let's come together as a district and a community and return to the practice of supporting, trusting, and respecting the highly educated, highly trained, highly capable professional MBUSD educators so that those educators can continue to provide the most excellent quality instruction, intervention, enrichment, coaching, counseling, and care to our kiddos of all ages. Thank you.
All right, next we have Freddie Musquez.
Freddie's not here tonight. They're having an officer installation event in Riverside, so he's not here tonight, nor did I get a report from him to read. So at this time, I don't have a report.
Okay. And that leads us to Dr. Andrus for the superintendent's report.
Great. Thank you. I have a couple items I want to share that are important, kind of beyond the things that we're going to talk about tonight. Just draw some attention to some great things that are happening. First of all, today is school day number 92, but who's counting? That means we're on the back half of the school year already. If you look at our school calendar, you'll see that there is on each day of the date, there's a number, and that's the number of school days that we're in. So as of today, today's the number 92. Since our last meeting, we've had a great 3 weeks of winter break to celebrate the various holidays that all of our community celebrates and have some time off. As I was listening to one parent, they said, though it's challenging that third week, week number 3 is gold. Because week 1 and 2 are busy with holidays and events and activities, and week 3 is like this downtime. And so for some, it's really great. For others, they're back to work. And so gratefully, we have our seed camps offered through our early learning and enrichment program that offers services and daycare for families for those who have to go back to work. And I was able to visit each one of them this break. Again, since that time, we've had professional development, as was mentioned, on the 13th for all of our certificate employees. And also, we've been dealing with the threat of these public safety shutoffs. Fortunately, up until today, we've been able to avoid all of them. Today was pretty crazy with some shutoffs with no warning, and that was back on and back off and back on and back off. And talking with one office staff member at one of our elementary schools, they said, we knew what to do. We had a plan. I know that it went off for about an hour, but put everything in place and school carried on. And only one parent came in to pick up their child out of concern. So the preparations that we had gone through in that time, it was at a minimal impact. In comparison to some other neighboring districts that have had schools out continually for 3 and 4 days at a time, we've been fortunate, and so we're grateful for the little valley that we live in that might have protected us. So we're grateful for that. I also want to recognize, I have a couple of recognitions I want to share. It didn't necessarily make it in the presentation from Taylor from Vista Marietta, but Sophie Shoemaker was our Vista Marietta Student of the Month for this month in January. That wasn't in the slide deck, was it? I didn't think so. So that's why, congratulations.
Thank you.
Also, I want to recognize Miss Nancy Young. She's one of the members of our board. She completed the Master's in Governance training provided by the California School Board Association. It's recommended all trustees and superintendents go through it. I am delinquent. I've only been through 2 sessions. I have 3 more to go. But you finished all of them, so congratulations.
Thank you.
And lastly, I want to share some great news. The prior board took some great action to help out the district in some long-term needs. We've had a program called Family Services that's been located in Portables adjacent to Avaha since 2006. And it's been limited in size because there's only so many available classrooms, but that program has really grown. We offer preschool for toddlers ages 18 months all the way up to 3-year-olds, and then they turn 4, they can go in our transitional kindergarten program. They also operate all of our after-school programs through both ELOP and state federally funded what we call SEED program. And those are after-school daycare facilities and program that happens at all of our elementary school sites. The prior board recognized, along with us, the need to do something about that facility because it just wasn't meeting the needs. It also had some impacts on Avaha and what we could do at that school site. So we pursued the purchase of a facility. And so during the winter break, literally during the winter break, I think it was the 26th, the 28th, we finally closed escrow and received the keys to a facility formerly known as the Promise Church, located on Madison Avenue. It's located between the freeway and Madison, right behind the Border Patrol facility, kind of south of CarMax. It's a building out there. That new location has a large professional development room, probably 2 to 3 times the size of this room. It also has 10 preschool shaped and sized classrooms, 10 of them. Each one are adjoining. So there's 5 sets of 2 with outdoor playgrounds. It is, according to Kathleen Israelson, who's our director, it is like a model program for how you would set this up. She said, if I had to design something from scratch, this is what it would be. So it was a terrific and very wise purchase the district made to pursue that. What that does, that allows us to go from serving 5 classrooms worth of students to 10 preschool-aged children, 10 classrooms worth. Will be a tremendous benefit to our community as we help families and provide preschool services to families at no cost or very limited cost to families. And so we're in the middle of renovation, and we anticipate completing that renovation sometime around spring break, depending on how it goes. There's also adequate property for a future transportation yard to expand transportation services. And you'll see actually tonight, kind of connected to that, you'll see an agenda item to approve a grant proposal for an additional 11 electric buses. But we got to park these things somewhere. And so that property will give us a future transportation yard as we expand services. So we really want to express our appreciation to the leadership of both those in the room who work here and also the board for continuing on this purpose and to see the future of where we need to go. So I appreciate that. This concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Dr. Andrus. And now for our board member reports, we're going to start with Ms. Shoemaker.
Hi, everyone. I hope everyone had an enjoyable and safe winter break. Today we had our SAC meeting at Mesa, and we discussed various topics, but some of those include bathrooms, office hours, grade level tasks, as well as the CTE pathways we have on our campuses. So to begin with bathrooms, we talked about like the things that the maintenance team does, as well as our custodials, and different methods in which as leaders and as students, we could promote to keep these bathrooms clean and overall good environment for our students. Next, we talked about office hours and different ways we can utilize them. We talked about an idea in which we could incorporate bringing guest speakers onto our campuses where they could talk and inform students on various career pathways. We also talked about counseling and the different grade level tasks. So with that, the Senior Culminating Project, as well as the JRT. And then lastly, we talked about the CTE pathways and immersing our students into different topics. For example, adding possible classes like agricultural science, welding, and construction. And then as students, I just wanted to say we are very grateful to share our ideas and talk about things that are happening on campus. So thank you. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Okay, and I'm going to start. I want to welcome everyone to the new year and, of course, our new board. I think it is important to let everyone know that this board represents the community, parents, taxpayers, and other stakeholders to make sure that the students in our community get the best education possible. Murrieta Valley Unified School District is a top-notch school district. And we, all of us, the teachers, administrators, staff, and parents have done this on a very limited budget. Our goal is to maintain high academic standards and excellent programs for the next generation. And I think one of the things I want to make sure that being a new year, the tone is significantly different. And I really appreciate all the board members up here and their commitment to try to change that tone. And what I'm excited about is as a community to try to work together, because I think this year we have new board, brand new board, but we also have a series of new challenges. And so it will be important for us as a community to work together to face those challenges. Redistricting is just one part of it. Being able to communicate, and the better we work together and share these ideas, the more successful all our kids are. And these students also take a note from us and how we communicate and how we work through problems. And I think it's important that we model that when we're having our meetings. I was fortunate to go to a city council meeting the other night, and I was just floored. I was floored at the tone, the level of respect, and it's something that I'm looking forward to seeing that happen here. I want to encourage that to happen. I think it's incumbent on all of us to try to encourage that. It will make a huge difference. It really will for all of the kids and our schools. I had the opportunity to visit Lisa J. Males and Monte Vista Elementary because I knew that they were going to be the most impacted by some of the redistricting issues that we had. I was impressed with both schools, and I'm from the west side, so it's interesting to see the other side of town and get to meet the people there. And I think for some of them, they were interested to get to meet me because they've heard a lot about me, but few people actually got to speak to me. Having that opportunity and going around and speaking to teachers and seeing what's going on, I don't see that the parents are going to lose in any situation with any of those two schools. They're excellent schools. It has been my goal as a board member to try to make sure we hit all of our schools, or at least I got to see them, and you really get a feel for what the culture's like. The other thing, we have math curriculum coming up. I mentioned funding issues. One of the things that came up was bond, right? Was this past summer, of course, I was here for all that. And sometimes we get that a little bit twisted with regards to teacher pay, and we have a lower enrollment, and whether or not we needed a new school or not, it turns out with a 4% decrease, we're facing a whole new set of challenges in our enrollment. So that's going to be something that's going to be important. There's a lot of discussion about, I think this last week, I got more constituent calls about a whole variety of topics, all of them requiring funding issues and concerns about different things happening at our schools than I have in the whole 2 years. And I thought that was really, really unique. So we have challenges. We're definitely going to have a busy year. I look forward to working with the staff and facing those challenges. And that's all I have. So we're moving on to Mrs. Schmidt. You're up.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say good evening and Happy New Year. And since our last meeting, I've been doing some research on just the math scores in our state and district, because I am currently a teacher and in the classroom, and I know that like all the districts are focusing on like raising our math scores, right, for our students. So after attending the PRI board member training in December with some of my colleagues, and we were there, we were listening to a presentation. We got this book. It's called The Great Classroom Collapse, and it's by Lance Izumi. I'm just showing you that because as a teacher and through my teacher lens, it really opened my eyes as a teacher as to why reading and math scores, like not necessarily in this district, but it's affecting everywhere, not in California and the US, and why they're continuing to decline. So I highly recommend teachers and parents read this book, because for me it was really eye-opening, because as teachers we're always working so hard in improving the scores of our students. So we're doing all the things we know how to do, but sometimes it seems like nothing is working. So this book and the speakers addressed some of the reasons why that might be happening, and it was a very good book. So I've been researching that. I've also met with the wonderful Joe Parla to get a better understanding of how our district chooses curriculum. So I'm just working on meeting with different people as I find my way on the board, and everyone's just been so great, and I'm just working on building my knowledge so that I can be most helpful. And because curriculum, I'm a professional development specialist, so that is what I do. So I'm very interested in that, and Mr. Parla was just wonderful and very helpful. And I also have researched and learned more about the district's boundary redistricting that we will talk about tonight. I also scheduled site visits. So I have scheduled all my site visits for all the sites that are in my district area that I represent, my trustee area. So I'm really excited about that, to get out onto the campuses and meet the administrators and see all the amazing things that are going on in our schools. I would also like to recognize, and I hope I pronounce your name correctly, Sarah Kasky, a teacher at Buchanan Elementary who applied for and received a garden grant, and she's creating and updating a school garden at Buchanan Elementary. And this is a wonderful project that the students will love. At my past schools, we've done that, and it's really just been a great activity to just bring the parents and build the school culture, and just so students can see how they can grow things and either to beautify or to provide, food. So I appreciate her letting us know about that. And then also I want to thank you to Vincent, and I hope I say his name right, Baroni, okay, because his crew assisted with this project. So I just want to mention you, Vincent, if you're watching. And Sarah had lots of accolades for you, and we just want you to know that we appreciate you and your team. So that concludes my report.
All right, thank you very much. And next, Ms. Young.
Good evening, everybody, and I hope everybody enjoyed their much-deserved break. I know everybody gets exhausted by the end of the semester. I went to the Reflections Night of Honor Awards program at Murrieta Mesa earlier this week. For those of you who may not know what it is, it's a statewide PTA arts program. So the kids that came in first place will move up to the county level, and the ones who come in first place at the county level will move up to the state level. And I really enjoyed seeing their artwork. There were all different types of mediums there. I also want to give a shout out to all those PTA volunteers who work so hard to make sure our kids have these experiences and lots of other experiences, like field trips. But anyway, I'd like to congratulate the winners, but actually all of them who put themselves out there to participate, because that takes courage too. I did go to the Student of the Month breakfast. Congratulations. It's always very inspiring hearing the kids' stories, and you do always need to bring a lot of tissue because it's very emotional. I needed it too. So let me see, what else do I have? Okay, I went on site visits to Abaha and to the Family Services Center, which was brought up. So I'm very eager to see the new site when the Family Services Center moves. So at Abaha, I mainly went into second grade classes. They do have all the classes coordinated, so they were all working on phonics and reading. And the teachers I found really in tune with their students, because little kids often need to move around, and they knew, between activities, they had different ways to get them up and get them moving so they could focus again. So I was impressed by that. They also restructured their PE because some of the kids needed to learn how to play well with other kids. And I was really impressed, but they explain expectations before they go out there. They have different things they can do out there. And so I saw all the different activities. Everything was peaceful and positive. So anyway, usually when I was in school, when they had PE, they would open the door, we'd run out and do our thing. But we grew up playing outside from the time we were little kids, so things have changed a little bit. In the family services area, Dr. Andrus talked about that already, but so I'll expand on it. They do offer both preschool and childcare for children 18 months and up. It's a great option for working parents. They also have regular preschool for people who might not need the all-day childcare, morning sessions, afternoon sessions. Starting at age 4, kids go into transitional kindergarten, which I think is really important. And just to add on to that, there is childcare at all of the sites for the transitional kindergarten kids. So parents don't need to worry about that. But, so yeah, I went into all different age, and it is expanding, so I'm looking forward to seeing it again when they move. And I also want to mention that our district received a Golden Bell Award for the early childhood education program from the California School Boards Association. So this district is recognized statewide for this. And I want to also mention some great things the Murrieta Rotary Club is doing for our students. Back in November, they sent 18 of our 7th graders to Pride Camp, and what Pride Camp is a leadership camp up in the mountains. They stay in cabins, they have lots of counselors, they do a lot of group activities. It's all paid for by Rotary. The kids come back and talk about it, and you can tell that it's a very profound experience for them. There is an 11th grade version of this called RILA, which is coming up soon, so there will be, I didn't quite catch the numbers, but there are going to be several 11th graders going to RILA. So, okay, that concludes my report.
All right, thank you very much. And Mrs. Munoz.
I think everybody knows I'm a basketball fan, and particularly the Broncos, where my son Cisco attends. So since the last board meeting, I traveled with our Broncos to Arizona, where they participated in the Nike Tournament of Champions, January 1st through the 5th, and our Vista Murrieta Broncos won the tournament. So I was really proud of them, and they had a good, fun trip. We heard in the student report about the Mesa Silent 7 game. I attended that game as well. Mesa does an amazing job. Their ASB and leadership group is just very creative and very involved. I always have a good time when I go to Mesa events, and their Silent 7 game was no different. I think they actually had somebody there from the student section report. It's like a group that travels around to like rate student engagement and participation, and it's always a lot of fun at Mesa events. Even just the signs that the kids create and that they post for their events are just really creative. So a lot of really talented athletes in the Southwestern League across all of the schools. Yesterday, I attended the CSBA new trustee training along with 14 other trustees across the state. Again, finding footing, getting acclimated as a new trustee in our state. Tomorrow, I'm going to be attending the Brown Act training hosted by CSBA as well, which is something that is really important for us as board members and trustees to understand. And I think for the public as well. I know, like I've heard from members of the public who come and spend their time to speak, and they wonder why we don't engage back with them or why we're not responding to their questions, and we're actually not legally allowed to do that. People can come in public comment and they can say whatever they want, whether it's truthful or not. We can't say anything about it. We can't answer their questions. We can't engage on it. Otherwise, we would subject ourselves to individual liability. So please know, we mean no disrespect by not engaging with you. We are not allowed to do that. And there's a whole myriad of other things that we are not allowed to do as elected officials. But anyways, I will get even more educated about that tomorrow as I attend that training. As Nick Pardue mentioned, a lot of outreach happened this week from parents and students. I received a lot of inquiries from people in the community this week. Some of them related to the redistricting, some of them related to just things happening in our national politics. And what I want to say to all of our community members in the city of Marietta is I really do believe that everybody that's here on the board is committed to our mission. Like as it says on the website, what's our mission? To inspire every student to think, to learn, and to care. I hear you, I see you. I know that people are experiencing changes in a variety of different ways. And I'll speak for myself, I am a safe space for any member of our community, and I always will be. And that's my report.
All right, thank you very much. And Ms. Briggs.
Thank you. I'll make it really brief. I'm so excited. This is our second meeting, and people have been asking me in the community as I'm out and about because they know, apparently like a lot of my videos have been shared, and they're like, so how are you enjoying the board? It is a fire hose of information, y'all. It's a fire hose of information. So you think you see this high-level space here of whatever the dais is, but there's so many intricate things that happen at the back end of so many things, and a great staff. Thank goodness for Darren Daniels and James. I am like peppering them with questions. Dr. Andres, just question after question, but let me tell you, the great part about it is that I am willing to just learn. I think our entire team, especially for the newer ones, I think we are so willing to learn so that we can be as effective in governance as possible, and that is what I'm grateful for. These last few weeks, I've actually been kind of really putting my calendar together, so in terms of a report of what I've been doing, learning, lots of learning, lots of information coming through, but I've scheduled some site visits for the next couple weeks, and I told Sherry in the office, I said, hey, I don't want to just go to my trustee area, which is great that the constituents that I'm so grateful for voted me in, but once we became elected, we became trustees to the entire district. So I'll be visiting every site with Dr. Andres as long as he'll have me, and I will go asking questions after questions. So if you're part of the district team, please know when I ask my questions, the only motivation is to learn and to find out how I can better serve our community. So as we move forward from here, I'm excited about it. I just want to say thank you to everybody. Thanks for everybody's patience, and I think this is going to be an amazing year.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And as you guys can tell, we have a great board. I think we're well represented and a lot of positive energy. All right, moving on to the consent calendar. Consent calendar items are voted on collectively as a group. Upon board member request, items may be removed from the consent calendar for discussion and individual action. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar items F1 through F6 as presented?
So moved.
I second.
And for a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. There's too many of this. Moving on to G1, receive 2025 annual governance calendar. The board is in receipt of this information. G2, approval of personnel report. I call for a motion.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Item G3, adoption of amended resolution number 24/25-09, early notification of intent to retire/resign. I call for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Is this a time to have some discussion?
Yeah, if you have questions or you have discussion, you can call for comments or discussion.
Brilliant. We are amending this to, I do have a question.
Sure. So this is an amendment to extend the timeline. We typically, in years past, have had between close to 40 to 50 retirees every year. For some reason this year, that number has dwindled to about 20. So we wanted to make sure that staff had some additional time to make that decision about retirement. This is just an extension of the existing amendment for one additional month through the end of February to give staff. Because if someone were to learn, like, well, I'm going to decide to retire now, they still need to go through a process of working with the Retirement Association, PERS or STRS, to put all that in place before they actually commit to retirement. So this just extends the timeline.
All right, thank you very much. All right, now to the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Item G4, public presentation of an opportunity for public comment on Murrieta Educators Association's initial contract proposal to the Murrieta Valley Unified School District for the 2025-26 school year. Do we have any public comments on this item?
Yeah, Chris.
All right, Chris Schultz.
All right, good evening, board. Dr. Andrus. Well, it's been a few hours since I was last speaking, I guess. My name is Chris Schultz, and tonight I stand before you representing the Murrieta Educators Association, a group of over 1,000 education professionals across the district. Teachers, nurses, psychologists, speech and language pathologists, all dedicated to MVUSD students, families, each other, and the caliber of work that makes Murrieta Valley Unified a destination school district and a gem of the community. Many of our members are proud parents of MVUSD students, past, present, and future, some MVUSD alums themselves. As we embark on contract negotiations for the 2025-26 school year, we first want to acknowledge the productive working relationship that exists between the district and the association. It has allowed us to settle the contract before the new fiscal year, rather than bargaining in retrospect for the past 2 cycles. That does not happen everywhere. We look forward to ongoing meaningful negotiations in good faith. As such, tonight we are officially sunshining the contract articles we intend to open. As always, Article 6, salaries, and Article 7, health, welfare, and other benefits are open. Attracting and retaining top-notch talent and providing a total compensation package that affords educators the ability to live in and be vested members of the broader community in which they work is imperative. This year, we also intend to open Article 8, contract hours and duties, and Article 12, class size, providing language to clarify, amend, and update those articles in ways that forward educators' capacity to devote time, attention, and resources to individual students in pursuit of better outcomes for all is the goal. As always, we anticipate spirited discussion and diverging perspectives about how to strike a more perfect balance in these areas given the constraint of finite resources. That said, we look forward to meaningful progress toward what ultimately are shared goals. Thank you.
All right, thank you. G5, public presentation of an opportunity for public comment on Murrieta Valley Unified School District's initial contract proposal to the Murrieta Educators Association. Wait, did we do this the wrong way?
No, it's just the second item, just our turn.
To the Murrieta Educators Association for the 2025-26 school year. Do we have any public comments on this item?
I do not believe so.
Okay. G6, adoption of Murrieta Valley Unified School District's initial contract proposal to the Murrieta Educators Association for the 2025-26 school year. Call for a motion.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
The first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. G7, approval of course-based independent study courses. I call for a motion.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Here, a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Approval of adult education courses. I call for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
With the first and a second, Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item G9, second reading and approval of proposed revisions to administrative regulations. Calls for a motion.
So moved.
We need a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 5-0. Item G10, approval of deductive change order for contract C000160 for the Lisa J. Males TK Modular Classroom Project. Calls for a motion.
So moved.
I just had a question on that. I don't know who to direct it to.
Sure, go ahead and ask.
So this shows, I apologize, I meant to ask this sooner, but where does this go? If there's a remaining, where does it go back into the general fund?
No, it doesn't go to it goes back to the fund where it came from. Would you like to add to that, Darren?
Yes, so when we have a deductive change order, we typically provide X amount of dollars over and above to, take advantage of pre-planning, so we don't have to come back for different, for permission to purchase. And so
Okay.
these were dollars that were not used for that, and so they go back, as Dr. Andrews says, it goes back into the capital improvement fund or wherever funded, be it usually facility projects. They're earmarked for facility projects, and
Okay.
so it goes back to that.
Got it. Thank you.
In this particular project for the classroom, additional classrooms we added to Lisa J. Males for the younger grades, that didn't come from a fund money, that came from local CFD, or
Okay.
otherwise known as Mello-Roos. So it goes back into that fund for future use in that same vicinity,
Okay.
where it came from.
Thank you.
Still need a second.
Yep, need a second.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. Item G11, approval of deductive change order for contract C0001128 for the Murrieta Elementary New Classroom Building Project. Calls for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Item G12, adoption of resolution number 24-25-13, authorizing participations in the Zero Emission School Bus and Infrastructure Incentive Program, ZESB. Calls for a motion.
So moved.
I second.
I have a question.
Ma'am.
When I was reading through it, there's an allocation of $75,000 that says it's for infrastructure, and I was wondering exactly how is infrastructure defined? Like, what's that 70? Is it like charging stations, or like
Yes.
what is meant by infrastructure?
Yeah, it's charging stations, switchgear, transformers, anything that's needed to be able to provide charging for all those units.
Okay. The other question I had is I noticed that one of the things that you have to agree to accept these grant dollars is the disposal of existing buses, but it didn't specify a time frame for the disposal, at least in the document that was provided. Do we know what the required time frame is for disposal?
Typically it changes with each grant. Some of them will do it right away. We've already identified the buses that need to be disposed of. So we have buses that extend back to the latter part of the 90s. And some of the other buses that are on their last leg. And so what this does is gives us an opportunity to bring in 11 new buses for the price of approximately 2 buses, in addition to that infrastructure charge. So we've already identified, because we know, so we have some that are inoperable right now, and we have a couple that are on their last legs, and so not necessarily reliable. And so depending upon each grant and what the time frame is, they direct us of when that's going to happen. But we already have earmarked, because we know we have a need, and we know we have some old equipment that needs to be disposed of.
Can the $75,000 for that's allocated for infrastructure be used to cover the cost of disposal? Because I have to imagine that there's some cost.
But it's not. That's because there's an incentive for us to get rid of our old diesel buses and whatnot. And so we're not paying. I don't believe we're paying Jennifer. Is Jennifer here? Jennifer, huh? If they take it, they don't charge us for the disposal, right? All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, who's they? The state?
Yeah, like I said, so in partnership with the grants and whatnot, there's, part of these grants sometimes in cooperation with like SCE. And so there's some red tape that you have to go through, right? Not only do we have to apply for this, but we get opportunity to choose about the infrastructure. Oftentimes they'll give us like, if you choose to do the infrastructure yourself, you're going to get reimbursed up to 80% or whatnot. And if SCE is in charge of the infrastructure, it's free of charge. And so that's what we've done in the last one. This is what we're going to do on this one as well. The trade-off sometimes is a slower runway. SCE is not the fastest group to work with, but at the end of the day, there's less money out of pocket.
I think the question was actually about what happens to the disposed buses. I probably wasn't clear on that because as she had mentioned, they don't charge us. I was curious.
They crush them. They crush the buses.
No, but
And
who is they? Do you know? I'm just. I wasn't sure. Maybe nobody knows. Like they come and get it. Nice. Thank you very much for all that. That's interesting. Okay. I think we got a first and a second, and we had discussion. We're ready for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Item G13, proposed school attendance boundary maps presented by Wolpert, which will constitute attendance boundary changes for all comprehensive elementary and secondary schools within the Murrieta Valley Unified School District. I call on Deputy Superintendent Darren Daniels and Andrew Bishop, Wolpert Consultant.
All right. Well, good evening, all. I appreciate the time to be able to publicly present an update on the attendance boundary redistricting process. Tonight's going to be a little bit weird because we have Andrew Wolpert, who's remoting in from Virginia. And so, Andrew, welcome. Thank you so much for working with us on this project. Andrew works for Wolpert. He's been our lead consultant on this project, but Andrew's been a partner of the school district for a number of years. As he works centrally with a lot of our demographic information as every year as we look at enrollment projections. For the past almost 2 years, I guess, we've been really diving into this work as we've worked with the city on trying to understand the residential development that's taking place across the city. About a year and a half ago, the city came to us and said, newsflash, you have about 6,000 new front doors that are getting ready to open in the next few years. Since that conversation and the work we've been studying, it's about 8,000 front doors. And so the growth in this community is real. You can see the apartments going in mostly on the west side. And so we are at this point in time where we started the process in and around August with the school attendance boundary redistricting project. Wolpert has been a very good partner as we start to unpack what we need to do. One of the critical components for us was to be able to partner with families and parents so they can be able to direct and provide input on what this is going to look like for us. Oftentimes, we don't get to hear from parents enough. And so through this process, it started off with a survey out to the community. And Winston, can I ask you to go to the next slide? Thank you. And so a parent community committee was put together, and they were charged with following board policy 5116A, which talks about the considerations factors when we look at redistricting to make room for students in a school, things that we need to take into consideration. There was really, I would say, two lead factors as it relates to the committee's work, and that was one, to find a balance for our school facilities, and the second really is to accommodate the student housing. When I say student housing, I mean a seat for each child in our schools and making sure our schools are appropriately sized. Next slide, please. To go over, just to kind of review some dates and timelines and key activities for the district. We jumped off onto this progress on August 27th, met with the board, talked about priorities, some of the criteria that we just looked at, the redistricting committee application to try to reach out to families, see who would be engaged to work on this project. In addition to Wolpert developing a project website, so after every meeting that was either happened in this room or with our committee, they updated a website to make sure the community had access to the latest information. In the latter part of August, we had another survey to the community about what was their lead interest as it relates to this work. We had a pretty good response. 2,400 families responded to that survey. In addition to the committee applications, we had 112 community members or parents apply to be a part of this, and Wolpert selected 20 community members that represented all of our schools through the district. From there, redistricting committee meetings ensued. Had several of them in October, and an opportunity in November for scenario refinement, so that work to be able to come to a cabinet level administrative team with inclusive of several principals, so they could hear what work was and what was the flavor from the committee. The scenarios were developed by the committee as well as with input from district administration, and that brought us to December. And I know many of you, all of you, were participating with our open houses on December 10th and 11th, where all three options were revealed to the community. So the maps were seen that night, and on that first night, a new survey was launched. That survey was open from December 10th and concluded on January 12th. Interestingly enough, we had over 2,000 again respondents to that survey, and so that brought us to the new year, and it happened fast and furious. On January 8th, we met with city partners from the planning team, also the traffic engineer, as well as the police department, in discussion about what these maps look like and how will they impact traffic. And again, no decisions were made, but it was actually just a very good opportunity to be able to talk about what's impacting the school district, having their input and their commitment to quarterly meet with us because we know whatever decision happens, we know traffic's real in Marietta. And I think what was refreshing is that commitment that gets renewed to be able to say, we're in it together.
Could I ask, how many, 8,000 doors, what is the estimate of how many kids that brings to our district?
You know what? You said you wouldn't ambush me tonight?
Oh, is that no, I'm sorry.
Joking. You know, I don't have the methodology, and I'll point to Andrew on that because Andrew does our demographics, and he can break down for us and, how many children on average come from a single-family residence or multi-family residence, because it's different.
Yeah, they did mention that. I just don't remember the numbers. I was wondering if I didn't think
so
that was an ambush.
When you take over the mic, you might want to address that. Okay. The January 13th, the committee meeting provided an analysis of what the options and the options that will show some results of the data that came from that survey. But super impressed with the parents who are on this committee because they looked at the survey results and came back looking at the options and made some obvious needed recommendations or changes to the boundary maps for them to be presented tonight. And so tonight what you're going to see is the parent committee recommendation that's there. Also on the 14th of January, we as senior staff and cabinet level administrators were able to see some of that work be done. And so that brings us really to tonight. I know I met with each one of you this past week, give you kind of a glimpse into that each map and being able to make sure you have a solid footing to have the discussion tonight. And so our hope tonight is that you're going to be able to be engaged with Wolpert as you hear some of the information that came from them. But I think hearing all of you, one of the lead measures in this is what is this implementation going to look like? And so we wanted to dispel what that recommendation would be as well. And so if we can go to the next slide.
Before we get into the details, I think for the benefit of the community, because I know it was enlightening for me to hear, like we saw here and we heard today, you know, there was 112 applicants of parents in our district. 20 of them were selected to be the voice of the community. Can you talk a little bit about that selection process and our level of confidence that those 20 parent representatives are representing the whole of the community?
Yeah, you know, again, I'll allow Andrew was the one who led that committee, and Woolpert led the selection of the applications. Again, and us to make sure we wanted to be very transparent and allowing no bias to be coming from us as central district office administrators, and allowing Woolpert to do that work. And so the application process went through Woolpert. Woolpert went through the vetting of all the applications and selected for us. But Andrew will certainly talk about that this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. In addition to the work that Woolpert did, community outreach and engagement happened at a variety of times. You know, we had, interestingly enough, we had some TV press time. We had a number of opportunities in front of different local print media outlets. A lot of district-wide email, text messaging to families, a lot of school site meetings that happened, in addition to meetings with different public partners. So a lot of community outreach that occurred with this initiative. Next slide. The survey results, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Andrew so he can talk about this slide, about the survey results that came, finished in January. So Andrew, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you.
All right, great. On this slide, we see the survey results. So these are, when we released the survey back in December, we provided options 1, 2, and 3 at the elementary, middle, and high school. And so these tables just compare the elementary options 1, 2, and 3, middle school and high school, so you can see what's most favorable. And what came across in these surveys is, you know, although we had 2,200 respondents to the survey, only about 1,400 completed it through option 1, 1,257 through option 2. So some people just decided to fill out some parts of the survey and not complete it. So that's why you see some varying numbers on the total votes there on the table. But what we saw in the survey results was that option 1 was most preferred across the board for members in the Murrieta Valley community. Options 1 at the elementary, middle, and high school, they all received, you know, above 50%, and at the high school, you know, above 63% supportive vote from those taking the survey. And then when you look at options 2 and 3, option 2 was, you know, right at 50% and a little bit under, depending on the level. And then option 3 was all below 50% supportive from the community. And so this really gave us an idea of what options we could start pursuing and putting forward as a recommendation before, you know, what we can start building on to bring to the board.
Thank you. Is there any questions about the survey results for Andrew?
I have a question, Darren. Yeah. And I think I might have covered this already, but Woolpert conducted the getting it out to the community portion. And in terms of getting to the community members who do not have kids in the district, but potentially have kids in the district, how were they communicated to? So I have a new mom. She's pregnant now. She'll have a TK in 3 years. What was the communication to that based on where they live and how this affected them?
Yeah. I will say I got the survey, and my youngest is in his early 20s. So my feeling is they probably sent it to everybody.
Yeah. Was it through an email? Was it through a piece of mailer?
Yeah, I had emails, text messages, came in through the mail.
A text message?
Yeah, I think so.
Is it because you're a teacher in the district, though?
I'm not a teacher in the district.
No.
I was a teacher and I wouldn't be able to be on the board.
Okay, so I just wanted to know if that was covered, Darren. That's all that we got everybody, you know?
So
as much as we could.
Monica Gutierrez is our PIO.
Yeah.
And so although Woolpert provides us a lot of information, we do the strategic kind of, you know, pushing out of the communication, trying to hit all types of different media outlets. You know, Press Enterprise is here tonight again with us. You know, they've helped us. The Patch has helped us. I was on NBC with it. Telemundo was on it. So we've had a lot of...
I missed that clip, Darren. You gotta put that up for the district to see.
I was not on Telemundo.
Oh, okay.
I was on NBC.
I was gonna say, that's impressive.
I want to hear your Spanish.
Yeah.
No point out about Español.
But at the end of the day, I think what I was able to hear from Andrew was the level of engagement from the community was substantially high in comparison to other districts. That they do this nationally. And so I think it's the Murrieta way. We have a lot of engagement in our community, and I think it was great to be able to hear from a lot of families. And I appreciate when families come and say, how can we do more? How can we get involved more? How can we hear more about it? And so tonight, I think we're hoping to be able to decrease the level of anxiety that sometimes comes with redistricting, because I think we've been very thoughtful. Wolpert's been a great partner and being able to work with the parent committee, recognizing that this recommendation might not be perfect, but there are some things that Wolpert can help us with moving forward. And so if we can go to the next slide. There we go. So the boundary phase-in process, we've heard over and over and over from our families about the concern of how this is going to be implemented. And so tonight we're going to try to go through just this boundary phase-in draft proposal. Nothing is set in stone, but it's certainly at the proposal phase that will go along with the maps and how we'll implement them in the school district to be able to achieve our goals. All newly enrolled students in this proposal for 25-26 will attend a new school based on the new district boundaries. So if we choose to make new boundaries, we would like to see all newly enrolled families. You buy a new house, move into a new apartment or whatever, those folks would be the first ones to start their new boundary. Beginning in 27-28, when the existing elementary schools students matriculate into middle school, they will attend the new middle school based upon the new district boundary. I'll get into a little bit of some specificity and some examples of that on the next slide. And lastly, we heard grandfathering. It was a great concern. And so district staff took great care in making sure that grandfathering is being addressed for our intra-district transfers based upon enrollment patterns for older siblings, making sure we can try to do as best as we can to keep our older siblings and the younger siblings together. We want our families to be together through their educational process. And so making sure that households have the ability to provide for a transfer or put in for a transfer, and based upon grade level or program availability, we can make that happen. That's something historically we've done. I think we'd continue that practice. And so I know grandfathering has been probably the most asked question of me through this, is like, how are we going to do this? When are we going to start it? And making sure our kids don't get split up. You know, oftentimes we have a lot of families that, you know what, my kid's going to be an 8th grader. I want to make sure they can be a Nighthawk, or they can be a Ram, they can be a Bronco, because they've been fixing for that for a lot of years. And so I think we've addressed that through this next slide.
I think like setting realistic expectations on that is important though, right? One of the things that I've been hearing from a lot of different families is it's not going to affect us because we're all going to get grandfathered. And that just can't be true, right? If we could grandfather everybody, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We wouldn't be doing this process, right? But at the same time, I think if in fact we're able to roll this forward in a process, and I think not all families, I mean, some families will probably want to go right now, but what we've attempted to do in this proposal is be able to provide kind of the slow roll to help bring families along if families want to be able to, and we do see, like I said, we don't know exactly what's going to happen and how these apartments are going to perform, how many kids are going to. This week we had 7 new Abaja students. I think Nick, I said we had 5 this week, now we have 7. So they are starting to slowly, rent out to families. And we know, we've been told by the apartment complexes that summertime, late spring and summer, is really the time where families make that transition. 100%, I think you've hit on something that over the years, we've had people want to make transfer, and we can't allow everybody. We will do our very best. And while we try to, we look at every grade level, specifically, it's not just a one-size-fits-all. We might be able to have room in a fourth grade at a particular school, but not at a 3rd grade. And so that is a real reality for us, that we may not be able to accommodate all requests. One of the questions that I got, and I think, for the benefit of the public, for them to understand, is like, schools only have whatever their set capacity is. And we sort of know, like on average, year over year, how much inter and intra-district transfers we allow. And then we also have to think about our SPED kids that get priority even above all of that, that also impact the capacity at any given school. And so I just think we have to be really clear when we're talking about any kind of like exception criteria. We're talking about maybe what, like 10 to 15% are going to actually get an approved exception.
We don't know exactly what that number is going to be, because we don't know what the enrollment projections are going to be. We know what a projection is and what they are now. Currently, our transfer population is approximately 12% of the makeup of the students in this district. And so with that, and again, as President Pardue said earlier, we're experiencing what I hope is a moment in time with some declining enrollment at different grade levels, particularly K and TK. But we are going to, it's going to be grade by grade, school by school. We recognize right now we have several schools that are already impacted. Cole Canyon for years has been impacted. And we said, do we allow transfers into Cole? If we have a transfer availability, we can let it in. But typically the answer is no. But going through this process, our aim is to be able to balance schools so our schools are more similar than dissimilar, and making sure our schools are not, any schools are not overcrowded. We recognize each one of our schools has a different load capacity, and so how we utilize our campuses are also wildly important. And so I think one of the things internally that we'll be looking at is how we utilize our classroom space. Historically, I'll tell you, when I was a principal, at least it felt this way, it was where we had room to be able to put a particular program. Do we have a room or space on a campus? And sometimes we get kind of disproportionality about programs across different schools because there's room. This gives us, I think, a great opportunity to have the conversations inside the district about being able to re-bench where our programs are based upon the enrollment as it's happening, as well as where we have room. I think we're also going to have to make facility decisions along with it. Schools that have not been impacted, they've been able to use a classroom for storage. In this new reality, we may not be able to. But again, if you look at the 2 elementary schools and the 1 middle school that's on the west side, all 3 of those were really kind of busting at the seam. Conversely, on the other side of town, Lisa J. Males is over 1,000 as well. They have a little bit of space there, but not a whole lot. But so through this process, we hope to be able to draw more of a balance for our schools. Warm Springs Middle School only has 755 kids. Through this process over time, being able to build all of our middle schools to be much more balanced. I think it's helpful for students to be able to have more of that equitable middle school or high school, elementary school experience because the resources are more similar than dissimilar.
I have a question about high school because I'm getting a lot of very anxious questions for various reasons, including possible different demographics in the different high schools and programs. Since we don't really seem to have a problem with the high schools being overcrowded, can we just leave them alone, like not redistrict high school?
That is a recommendation you can absolutely make. Looking at the data, looking at the size of our schools, I do believe that's possible. And instead, I'd be looking for the direction from the board to make that consideration.
Darren, I think it's really good for the public to know. I mean, I hear what Yvonne's saying about, the reality of it, but the truth is, I think it's good to hear from the staff that this is like, everybody just calm, take a deep breath, and we're gonna work through this. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's super important. So the boundary phase, the proposal where it's specifically, and when people have reached out to me, which they have from the community, it's the newly enrolled that I can see is gonna be the highest impacted at this point.
Yeah,
but
I would say, and if I could just take you through this for a second.
Sure.
So if in fact a new boundary was developed and adopted by you all for the 25-26 school year, that's where we would start, and that's where we would say the new families coming into the district would start in the new boundary. In addition to that, TK and K is what we're proposing to start in 25-26, so all TK-K students starting in the new boundary. So just to kind of give you what the green and the white are, the white squares are students in that grade level staying at the existing school boundary. The green is new school boundaries, and so utilizing just kind of the year-to-year progression, if you have a first grader in the 25-26 school year, they're going to remain in the existing school boundary for the 25-26 school year, and if you go to the 26-27, they're going to go to second grade in the same that same school. So you can see all the way through, our aim is trying to keep all of our elementary school students or middle school students all at, I'll call it the school they're at. and being able to make sure, because school connections are everything to this district. I'll tell you, Nick was a parent, I've been a parent, and our kids buy into their school, and it's a big deal. And so making sure our kids are successful and being able to be connected to school is wildly important to us. And so through this model, we have an opportunity to be able to seize upon that. If you look at, say, for example, I don't know, third grader. If you have a third grader next year, in the 25-26, they're going to go to fourth grade, fifth grade. Then they're going to transition to sixth grade in their new school. And so that's where they're going to be going to a new school anyway. They would just be going to the new school. And of course, their peers, their neighbors and whatnot would be going with them. And so I put 3 examples for you to consider just to be able to help clarify what the green and the white mean and how to read this chart. So as we propose this implementation table, it's not finalized. Obviously, you would finalize it. But we tried to put something together that honored our families, existing families, that they can stay put and allowing them a little bit of runway to be before they transfer to a new school. And Nancy, if you chose to say high school is off the table, we're going to keep existing boundaries, my recommendation would be taking 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th off this grid. And so we're really talking about a TK8 redistricting.
Yeah, because that's been most of my questions. And yeah, they're feeling a lot of stress, but a lot of my questions have come from people in the high school community.
Any other questions regarding this table, Dr. Andrews?
Just to carry on with that part about high school, currently at our 3 high schools, and we see that if you look in any neighborhood, you'll see banners from all 3 schools everywhere. Because we've had a history of allowing high school students to transfer to whichever high school they would like to go. And to a certain extent, we really encourage that because we can't repeat programs everywhere. There's only one fire science program that we can really run. There's only one IB program. There's only one, in this case, like Vista Marching Band or so, whatever that specific thing someone's after, they tend to be really specific. So we allowed, to a really great extent, high school students to transfer to where they would like to go. Our high schools are also large enough they can accommodate those requests. And so that hasn't really been a challenge for us to have to force a change at the high school level.
I have a quick question. Just as I was mentioning earlier, as a board, we ultimately carry the weight, actually, of this decision. And as for the constituents to reach to us, we were talking about how many people were involved in the survey. All the constituents can talk to us directly about their concerns so that we can address them. One of the things that came up in discussion, it sounds like a lot of people discussed it, was this high school boundary. And I didn't get a ton. It's interesting. I didn't get a lot of people talking about it. I have heard from a few constituents just last minute. But would this be an appropriate time for a motion to direct staff to not change those boundaries? Or is that for February?
That would be for February. Tonight, because this item has no action with it.
Okay.
But if, for example, if each one of you made a comment and then kind of, in essence, gave us direction to amend or change what's here, we would gladly accept that feedback and bring back something different for final approval that would reflect those comments. So, for example, I've heard Mrs. Young say, we could take high school off the table.
I would like to add my voice to that, and I think we've spoken privately about that. I totally agree. I do not think that the high school districts need to be changed.
And I see you're nodding your head. And I would just ask the other 2 trustees, Mrs. Schmidt and Mrs. Munoz, do you have a concern or a question about the high school to maybe amend that for a recommendation? Okay. Ms. Munoz, any thoughts about the high school attendance boundaries?
I don't have any thoughts about that. What I'm more interested is the overall implementation plan and the intersection between the deficit spending that we heard about in the last meeting and how the implementation here could possibly affect that, staffing, and other considerations, because it feels like we still have a lot of unknowns.
Yeah.
And so I'm reluctant at this point to make any decision or recommendation because I still have so many questions.
Yeah, and I think, we can certainly have more dialogue about it. As mentioned the last time, annually, regardless of with a boundary shift or no boundary shift, our schools, expand and contract, and we have to, staff gets moved in order to be able to serve the students. And so we don't necessarily keep all the staff at one school site, and if one grows, we just add more teachers. There is a staffing plan across our district that we are careful to make sure we are appropriately staffed. We work well with our labor partners. We know moving a teacher does not come easy. I mean, our teaching staff, I think, is one of the great things of Marietta is teachers are plugged into where they work, and they oftentimes want to remain there, but it's not always reality for us. And so as we balance schools, or we take a middle school from 755 and grow that school, and we decrease it, we're squeezing the balloon, right? And it's like, so staff has to move, and that's certificated staff, that's administrative staff.
And not just staff, but even like the storage room that you talked about. If you're going to put kids in there, those boxes have to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And there's an expense associated with that. The relocation of it, the new storage location, all of those things,
It's labor that, because, we don't hire out, but we do utilize our people.
Yeah.
Like I said, our maintenance guys are going to go over there, our custodial staff are going to start boxing things up. That's time they're doing that and not being able to attend to their normal routine duties as set in their schedule. Nevertheless, though, those types of rooms, we know where they're at. We know, and we've been able to allow that, but it's not necessarily going to be a deal breaker. We recognize, I'll tell you, as a former principal, I knew what space I had. And when I had an opportunity to do something to create a little bit of space or be able to do something different, create a meeting room when it's a classroom, sometimes those things have to come off the table first, and our administrative staff know that. And so in this, we wouldn't be looking at making huge changes, but however, this would give us an opportunity to really hone in on the facilities and the facility master plan, because after a boundary set, we do have projections that come with it, and then we get to see. So if we decide to grow a particular elementary school and we don't have the space there, there would be a modernization project to put a new building or 2, 3, 4, whatever is needed in order to be able to do that. It gives us a better planning opportunity to be able to refresh a school site, to be able to ready them for the population that's coming. That wouldn't necessarily, in this plan, it wouldn't have to happen overnight. It can't happen overnight, and we're not in the financial position to make it happen overnight. But if we are able to make a decision, we can start really building a nice facility master plan for us to be able to look forward to and kind of build those milestones as we move forward to be able to accommodate the growth that we would be expecting out of this.
The biggest question that I've been getting is really about transportation and the financial implications to families and time spent in transporting kids.
Yeah.
And I mean, the reality is the district only has so many buses.
Yes.
And even with the, hopefully we get the grant, we get the new 11 electric buses, we still only have so many buses.
Correct.
And we have legal obligations to provide priority bus availability to certain students, SPED students, right? And certain grade levels. So the reality is there's going to be some segment of our population that's going to have to figure out how to get their kid to school.
Yes.
And there's financial considerations with that, whether they're paying for bus service or they're the ones taking them. So I understand why I'm getting those questions. I'm curious, in the parent committee, was this a topic of conversation?
I'll ask, like I said, I wasn't in that, but Andrew, if you could take note of that, and you can address that as you go through the maps.
And Andrew, also, before you start that, could you answer the first question about the parent committee, about the selection process, and then the parent consideration of this too as well?
Yep.
Yeah, if I can just kind of touch on that transportation. A couple of years ago, we were required by the state of California to put together a transportation plan, recognizing that we have an obligation to transport our students with exceptional needs. In addition to that, there's also a priority for TK through 6th grade. If you go to high school, some of our high schools, you'll see ample buses. Again, some of those students with exceptional needs, but we're also home to school transportation. As Clinton and Keith opened, there's, once upon a time, it was a nightmare to get from out at Spencer's Crossing all the way into Vista Marietta High School. It's a little easier now, with Costco and all those things coming in. I can't say it's completely easy, but it is easier. And so I think one of the opportunities that we do have is to look at our patterns of transportation. When we know our transportation program have already been looking at the options to look at seize upon opportunities. We recognize in the proposal that's going to be in front of you tonight, some of our youngest learners have to transverse over the top of 2 freeways. And would we be able to provide transportation? Yes. We have a board policy about how we prioritize that transportation based upon distance. And in addition to that, we would probably, guessing that we would be decreasing the amount of high school transportation and being able to utilize the buses that we typically use now at the high school level to go back to our commitment to our TK through 6th grade priority to be able to transport more younger learners. And again, it may not cause more money. It's being able to use our staff and our equipment in a little bit different way. Our hope is to be able to, over time, to be able to, grow our fleet. One of the things that has been very important to the school district over the years is that home to school transportation and prioritizing that. Just a few years ago, did we start receiving a little bit more money? Our money for transportation historically was frozen to a very small amount. I want to say $88,000 is all we received, and everything else was an encroachment. Through a couple years ago, they provided us not a dollar for dollar reimbursement, but a 60% reimbursement for home to school transportation. That doesn't pay buy new buses, but that does pay for staffing and some of the things that go along with it. But so all of that to be said is our financial situation in transportation is far better today than it was just 2 years ago. And so it gives us the hope that we are able to look in new ways to be able to transport students and be able to increase opportunities for kids to be on a bus. I would love to shorten the time a child's on a bus. I've ridden on a school bus from Duluth, and sometimes those youngest learners are up bright and early to get kids to school. And so we recognize taking a school bus across town. I wish all of our kids could drive a bus, be on a bus, because that would be less traffic, parental traffic in front of a school. But that's not our reality. And so there's absolute merit to what you're saying about the time on a child's on a bus. But when we start to get a boundary selected, our transportation team will come back around looking at, with assistance with the GIS mapping to be able to look at what families will be able to have that transportation. We have a school board policy that talks about who gets that prioritization, but at different times, based upon need, we have to pivot every once in a while and add routes where routes are needed in order to be able to serve our most vulnerable students.
All right, at this point, I will say, I want to add one thing from the meetings I've had, and just nod your head if you are aware. Since our bond discussion about needing a new school and our projections and what have you, and now we have a decrease in enrollment. That decreasing enrollment, bad news financially, but gives us wiggle room with what we're discussing right now in terms of grandfathering in and the urgency with which we have space at schools. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, like I said, bond or no bond, I think this process is imminent. Nick, right. I think in order for us to be good stewards of our facilities, I think it's the right thing to do. It's not easy, though. I will tell you, it's not easy for all of our families to be able to unpack it that simply.
But our projections do give us more wiggle room now at this point.
You'll be able to see in a second when Andrew gets in how this proposed parent committee, what they're proposing, and how that impacts the projection.
Well, I guess what I was getting at is the realities of our current decrease in enrollments from this school year have changed and given us a little bit more space.
Yes.
Or time.
Yes, except
a little bit.
Maybe more time, but most of that declining enrollment is really in our TKK. That was where the largest number of children who didn't show up, which is troubling for me. And we're still trying to figure out why. But I have a couple ideas in my head, but I think through the system, we have to really concentrate on how can we balance. And I think, if we can move the middle school population across the town in a favorable manner, would we need a K6 or K8 school? Maybe not. Maybe not. understanding that the Vineyard project, when they break ground and start building, that's an additional 800 homes that are kind of baked into some of these projections that are going to be on the west side. So I think the west side is something we're going to have to continue to keep our focus on. So I don't want to give you a kind of this, oh yeah, I have that crystal ball.
Yeah, no, ideally. Well, one of the things I have heard, and Dr. Andrus, if you let me know, is we might need to wrap this up a little bit earlier.
Yeah, so just in case for those who are watching, all of us who are like checking our phones, there is a new fire called the Fig Fire, which you don't know about this because you've been
I do know about it.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, well, I was hoping it was taken care of by now.
They haven't put it out. So we're just monitoring. We've got our police officers. They'll let us know if this group needs to evacuate, okay? But at the moment, police are responding, fire's responding, just as an FYI.
All right.
So we're monitoring that as well.
So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Andrew, and again, thank the parents for participating in this. And Andrew, if you can go ahead and start expeditiously take us through the proposed boundaries.
Okay. What we're going to see next are the proposed boundaries that were put together by the committee. So in doing that, I'm going to talk about the committee real quick since those questions came up. So in the committee process, we put out an application to any community members who wanted to participate and volunteer on a redistricting committee. And that application process would ask the applicant, their name, their address, what schools they're affiliated with. It would ask them if they were willing to remain objective in this process. Obviously, when people enter in these types of committees, sometimes people have their own personal agenda that they want to address to make sure that they get the things that they need. And so we asked them to remain objective in this process, and we then allowed them to provide a little bit of information about themselves. Why do they think they would be a good committee member? And so after sifting through those applications, there was, like Darren said, 112 applicants. It turned out that 12 of our applicants lived outside of the boundaries of Murrieta Valley, so I excluded those applicants. Although their input would be well received, I can't have them impacting the community that they don't live in. We also had 4 applicants who said they were not willing to remain objective, so I removed those applicants from the pool. And then we also had 5 applicants who said that they would not be able to attend any committee meetings. And that kind of defeats the purpose of being on the committee at that point. So overall, we had removed out 21 of the 112 applicants because of different inputs. And so once I was left with the remaining pool of applicants, I did separate them by the home attendance boundaries that they lived in. So I could have smaller pools to then choose from. And I wanted to make sure that on that committee that we had representation for all of our schools, all of our elementary schools, all of our middle schools, high schools, Murrieta Canyon Academy. We wanted to make sure that every facility would have at least someone representing it on this committee. And in that process, then I took each smaller pool of applicants, and then I reviewed what each one had to say, why they were choosing to be on this committee, and what they brought to the table. And the pool we were left with, it was a very distinguished group, I believe. We had educators who have 25 years in classroom experience. They're not Murrieta Valley teachers, they're neighboring teachers from neighboring districts. We had some Murrieta Valley staff members who made it to the committee. We had data scientists and home builders, members of the military. We had land surveyors from the State Department of Transportation. So a wide variety of backgrounds and skills and perspectives in this process, both being community members, parents of students in the district, and just through their personal lives and accomplishments, different things that they could bring to the committee. And so I was very confident in their ability, and I was very proud of the work they did. And then, so we'll go through to the, can we go to the next slide, please? We'll start looking at the committee options. And I'll explain a little more on these after. We'll quickly go through these slides, and then we'll do a comparison of what option 1 looked like versus the recommendation. But what you see here is the elementary school boundaries for the proposed committee recommendation. And so a lot of this, again, was based off that initial option 1 that went to the public and was the most well-received option in the survey. Now for the committee to make their recommendation. And in making that recommendation, the committee, we looked through all the survey results and we broke them down by what we called planning units. So in this process, we've broken the district up into 120 planning units. And so we were really starting able to see, by planning unit, how people were feeling on each option. Because when you look at the options as a whole, the district-wide option 1 may be the most well-received. But when you look at certain planning units based on the movement that's happening there, there may have been a preference for option 2 or option 3. And so there were things we could take away from options 2 or 3 for a planning unit and see if maybe that had a different impact. And with that, that's in doing that process, this is how we ended up coming up with this elementary boundary recommendation. On this map, what you see, the colors are the proposed boundaries. The blue outlines are the current attendance boundaries of each elementary school district. And the red arrows indicate the planning blocks or the area of existing boundaries that are being proposed to move, and the arrows are pointing to the new schools that they're moving to. And you can see that there's a lot of movement in the Murrieta elementary attendance area, obviously with that being our projected most impacted with the known development in the future. And so there's a proposed movement, a lot going to Curran, some of it being proposed to go to Alta Murrieta. And then as you get to the center part of the district, there's a little bit of a shuffle as we start looking at some of those survey results and things that we heard from the community in the first survey. The desire of families to maybe be assigned to closer schools. The desire to have well-maintained feeder patterns. And so all of those things came into consideration as the committee was making their recommendation. Transportation obviously was a key factor. Many of the parents on the committee feel the impact of transportation, feel the impact of the congestion and the traffic and the known issues in the community. And so in their perspective, as we looked at these recommendations, they did look at road networks and stop signs, stoplights and major street crossings. They looked at locked gates for certain communities and whether families could, actually transport students on certain roads or intersections if they made sense. And so these were all considerations by the committee when we began boiling down this recommendation. And then we can go to the next slide. We'll look at the middle school slide. So this is the middle school option or recommendation. Again, this is based off that option 1. This looks very similar to the option 1 that was presented to the public in the option survey, and we'll go over again those changes in about 2 or 3 slides. We'll do a comparison of option 1 to the recommendation, so you can really see the differences. But what you see here in this option is Thompson really, is kind of takes up the portion of the school district west of I-15, with the small exception around Los Alamos, Jefferson, and Guava. There's not many students in that portion right now, but there's a number of developments slated to be built. And so in the committee's recommendation, understanding that those students haven't arrived yet, it would be best to set the precedent that those students would be assigned to Warm Springs, since they are also proposed to be assigned to Alta Murrieta at the elementary level. So we would keep those students going from Alta to Warm Springs together. And we set the precedent before they move into those apartments. Chevala, is taking up most of the triangle between I-15 and 215, with the exception of that little red area, closer to Warm Springs. Again, that's many apartments that are going in there, not many families right now. And then the other kind of big difference you'll see is with McElhenney. We're taking the portion that is currently Chevala, that's east of 215, and assigning that to McElhenney, with the exception of the Pacific Landing apartments. So that's that little purple triangle up there, bounded by Clinton Keith and I-215. So that area is currently Chevala, and in the proposed recommendation, that apartment complex is proposed to be reassigned to Antelope Hills. And so in keeping all of Antelope students together, transferring from elementary to middle school at Chevala, that's why that little piece was retained in Chevala. And then you can if you look at the McElhaney boundary on the east side, you see what is the Monte Vista boundary. So currently all of Monte Vista is assigned to McElhaney. And in the recommendation, we propose moving the majority of Warm Springs south, of Monte Vista south to Warm Springs, with the exception of the neighborhood just to the north. So there's a road there called La Alba Drive. Any homes that are north of La Alba would remain in the McElhaney boundary, along with the Willow Springs community that's currently has families moving in and still under development. And if we go to the third slide, this is the high schools. So what we saw in option one and why we believe that was probably the most preferred was option one made the fewest changes to the existing high school boundaries. And what we're hearing tonight is that's probably, we're probably going to want to not do those changes. And, and we'll discuss that going forward. In the committee's recommendation, they did keep all of the Murrieta Valley boundary intact without making any proposed changes. And so the only change that they really proposed here in this option is taking a portion of that Greer Ranch neighborhood, which is part of the Antelope Hills development or boundary, and pushing that over to Vista Murrieta just because of the proximity of that school and those homes. And in doing this, they did, the committee did look at the makeup of students and where they live and how students would transition. And when you look at this boundary, it's about a 50-50 split of those Antelope Hills families that would either be split to Murrieta Mesa or Vista Murrieta in this auction. And so that's what the committee had settled on for the high school boundaries. But again, as Darren said, as we're showing some declines at the high school in the future, we should be able to accommodate our student enrollment without making any changes to that high school attendance boundary. And so then if we go to the next slide, this will show projected enrollments. It shows the projected enrollment in 24-25, 29, well, not projected, that's the current enrollment in 24-25, based on student enrollment as of October 6th. And then the middle column, 29-30, that's the projected enrollment going out 29-30, and then we have a projected tenure enrollment at 34-35. So again, this is based on the enrollment projections that were prepared that factored in, at the time, it was about 6,000 apartments. I know we're closer to about 8,000 in the pipeline now. And so when we are factoring in apartments, we do, or any type of residential development, I calculate what I call student yields or student generation rates, where I look at existing housing stock that has been constructed in the community over the previous 4 to 5 years. So a recent sample of development, and we see about how many students are those homes producing. And with that ratio, I'm able to use student data to determine who lives in the newest homes, and then we can factor in that student enrollment towards the new developments. And what you see is single-family homes, over the last 5 years are producing about 0.63 TK through 12 students for every, or 63 students for every 100 single-family homes. So quite a bit. So when we're talking 800 homes in the Vineyard development, we're talking, about 500 students coming out of there potentially based on these student generation rates. And that's, again, TK through 12. And then when we look at apartments, again, same idea using the most recently constructed apartment complexes in the community. That generation rate is a 0.36. So again, about 36 TK through 12 students for every 100 condos, townhomes, and apartments. And if we extrapolate that out to 8,000 units, we're talking about 2,500 students in the future. Now, keep in mind that those 2,500, those would be coming from those homes, but that doesn't necessarily mean, the existing homes today are going to continue to produce students at the rates they do. Neighborhoods do go through periods of turnover. You're going to see, some communities where they start aging, where their kids have gone through the system. They're not producing more kids, but those families haven't left those homes. And so you'll see ebbs and flows in different parts of the community. So 2,600 students from apartments or from, the multifamily development does not necessarily translate to 2,600 brand new students in the district because, over time, those aging out communities won't be producing as many. It'll be shifting enrollments, but overall, we will see some projected growth in the next 10 years. If we go to the next slide. So here's where we will
Andrew,
compare.
could you
Yes.
pause just for a second? I just want to give everybody an update about the fire, because that could be on people's minds. According to some report we received, the fire is currently under control, and they're working on that, but they will just said to remain vigilant. So that threat is being managed right now. So just want to give that update. Thanks, Andrew.
Great. You're welcome. All right, so here we will do the comparison, and so you can really see the difference of that option one that we heard, a preference from the community, and then how that translates to the recommendation. So if we can go to the next slide. So on the left is the committee, what we called option one, that was what was presented to the public, and the map on the right is the committee recommendation. So a big takeaway here is in that committee option one, the portion of Marietta Elementary that was south of Guava, and that includes all of the Duluth community out in the hills, it had originally been proposed to move to Buchanan. At the time, the committee had some discussions, and there was talk that of a possibility of a Date Street extension in the future. In conversations with the district and the city, it doesn't sound like that's going to be any time in the near future. And so with that understanding and in evaluating survey results from those Duluth communities, the committee recommended, instead of moving that area to Buchanan, they decided that it may be best to just leave the Duluth families at Marietta Elementary. So that's keeping them where they're at without making a change for that community. Then as we move north and we look at Curran, Curran's in the green. So the committee originally had proposed taking everything that was in Curran east of Jackson. So that's the colony, which is mostly senior homes. There's one small single-family subdivision there. They had recommended using Jackson as a boundary between Tobichal and Curran, so everything east of Jackson would be moved to Curran. Now, again, when we we looked at those survey results, we looked at what people had to say. There were families in the single-family portion there that really felt it important that they stay at Curran, just with the proximity of the school to their homes, the ability for their students to walk to that school, it made sense for them. And knowing that the colony doesn't produce too many students outside of just a handful, due to whatever their reasons may be, the committee, again, decided to keep that colony portion at Curran. So again, this is keeping that part of that boundary intact without making a change. And so then as you just move a little bit north of there, when you look at Tobichal, again, the committee, there was two planning blocks that were north of Clinton Keith with families that could potentially, cross over Clinton Keith and get to Tobichal right there. Well, when we looked at the survey results, it was kind of a mixed bag in that community. Some of them preferred to stay at Antelope Hills, and some preferred to go to Tobichal. And it was, it was kind of a mixed bag, but in doing this, the committee recommended just keeping those families at Antelope. So again, not making a change for that community, just leaving it intact. And then if you move just directly east, you look at that purple for Antelope. In the committee's option one, it had been proposed to move the very north portion of Rail Ranch and the eastern portion of Lisa Jamales to Antelope. And again, this was based on that initial survey response of people wanting to be assigned to their closest school. When you look at road networks, those areas are closer to Antelope than they are to Males or Rail Ranch just by the road network alone. That doesn't factor in traffic, so I know traffic can be a beast around the high school. But again, as we discussed, it kind of made sense to take the north portion of Rail Ranch out. We left, like I said, we left the Pacific Landing Apartments and moved that, or proposed to move it to Antelope. But the rest of Rail Ranch, it was proposed to just leave it at Rail Ranch. There are some developments that are slated there off of Whitewood in the future. And so in doing that, the committee felt that as those homes are developed, it would probably be more advantageous for those families to travel down Whitewood to Rail Ranch than down Clinton Keith and that traffic to Antelope Hills. And then when we look at that portion of Males, it's a lightly populated area, but it was the idea of moving to Antelope was fairly unpopular with the survey respondents from that portion of the district. They did prefer the options that kept them at Males. And so since it's a small population, it seemed fitting just to leave them where they were and not make that change. And then the last change that you'll see is when you look down at Buchanan. So Buchanan is in green, Alta's in yellow, and Monte Vista's in blue. So right now there is a community there, a mobile home community in the it is the Knowles. I apologize. The Knowles mobile home community. So again, this is a senior community. There are a handful of students that live there due to whatever their home address is or their guardian status is. But in the first recommendation, it was recommended with kind of a north-south split, again, based on just the road networks and the closeness of schools. So that southern portion is a little bit closer to Buchanan. The northern portion was a little bit closer to Monte Vista, and so that resulted in that split that you see in option 1. However, when we did look at the survey responses from that section of the district, it was fairly aware that the respondents in that area much preferred the idea of being assigned to Buchanan as opposed to Monte Vista. And so, when we looked at that, and we also looked at the road networks, we looked at how families and people living in that community could possibly move up to Monte Vista. We became aware of some issues in that community, namely locked gates. There isn't a road network that directly feeds on the north side to get to Monte Vista. So those families would have to exit to the south down Hot Springs and around probably up to Winchester and back around to Monte Vista. And that seems to make that issue of transportation quite more significant if there are families in there that have to transport students. And so in looking at that, the committee did recommend just reassigning that portion, the Knowles community, to Buchanan in this option. And then we can look at the middle schools next. So again, when you look at this option 1 on the left, the recommendation on the right, there was a portion of Thompson south of Guava that the committee had proposed moving to Warm Springs in the initial option 1. That survey respondents in that area tend to prefer an option where they stay at Thompson, and so that was changed in this recommendation. It's only a handful of students and doesn't have a significant impact if they were to stay. And then when you look at the other change would be up north at the Pacific Landings Apartments between Chevala and McElhinney. We proposed moving that small portion to Chevala. Again, that's to keep all of those Antelope Hills students together. If we were to make that block assign Antelope Hills, they thought it would be best to also then assign that block to Chevala to keep those students transitioned together through elementary and middle school. And then the last change between option 1 and the recommendation, again, would be around that the La Alba Drive street in the Monte Vista neighborhood. So just using La Alba Drive as our boundary, we would push anybody north, or we would keep them in McElhinney instead of assigning them to Warm Springs. So it's more of an even kind of north-south split where those homes furthest on the north, it would be an easier commute for them to go up to McElhinney as opposed to Warm Springs. And so we made that small shift based on those survey responses in that area. And then when we look at the high school, which is on the next slide, so in option 1, they had proposed moving all of the Antelope boundary from the Mesa boundary to Vista. But again, in understanding that that made Vista too light. Mesa too light, I apologize. And so they wanted to find a better way to split that community. And so, as I mentioned before, they did more of a 50-50 split. So 50% of the kids in the Antelope boundary would go down to Mesa, and the other 50 would be assigned to Vista. But again, if it is the board's recommendation, we can forego any boundary changes at the high school level. We'll just wait to hear that recommendation. And then that's what I have for the slides, Darren.
Thank you, Andrew. Any questions for Andrew? Yes.
Could you have mercy on my eyes on our papers for the next round and switch it to portrait so my map's a little bigger? It's just super small, just super tiny. That's my only comment on the presentation of this.
We can print bigger ones for you.
Yeah, other than that, it's great. And is there a way to do, Andrew, an overlay? So when we look at this and I'm seeing option 1 versus the committee recommendation, is there, you know how we used to have back in the day, the transparencies, you put on an overhead and it flashes? Is there a way to overlay the existing option and then the recommendation?
Yeah, I can provide a map to Darren that he can distribute to you all that will show option 1 overlaid on the recommendation, so you can physically see those changes.
Thank you.
And I have one last comment just on the high schools. I think it's really important to be able to communicate to the community that we really do want to have nothing really changed, that students would have the option, regardless of where they're at, to go to the school of their choice, because it looks like we're pretty even. That didn't look like anything we really needed to change too much.
Correct.
So I would like that to be noted at some
Yes,
point.
we've made note earlier about that one because we have some good feedback from you about the high schools. If you wouldn't mind, I just want to ask about the other maps. We'll start with middle school next. If you look at the maps that were proposed from both option 1 and the, and if you, thank you for putting up the middle school one. Yeah, that one that's there. Any comments or questions, things that you want to make any sort of there are differences there. Do you have any recommendations about the middle school? Keep in mind the goal is to find balanced numbers, which that's referred to on the chart, the conceptual projected enrollment. Those recommendations in the out years have each school right around 1,200 to 1,300 students in those variations. Any comments around the middle school?
Well, I would just say, is there an opportunity to maybe make it even a little bit more balanced? Because like I see Warm Springs is one that going on that the 34-35 enrollment is 1,049, and the other one, Thompson, is still at 1,392. That's still, I mean, a lot more kids.
Oh, sorry, we're having additional alerts.
Fire alerts.
We're still not in the evacuation area. We're just nearby. Is there a specific planning area, block, or a neighborhood that you're referring to, or is it just in general to try and balance it more?
I'm just looking in general at the conceptual projected enrollment on that slide, on slide 12.
So we can take a look at the planning blocks and bring back some ideas for your thoughts.
And I was just also wondering, I'm assuming I know you've shown this to the administrators. How do the school administrators feel about these changes? Are they happy with these changes, or how are they feeling to have it more balanced?
So you can imagine each principal has ownership of a site, and so I think they all probably feel a little bit different. I can speak to a couple. Buchanan. Currently, Buchanan is under 1,000 students in this projection. In the out years, we have Buchanan becoming relatively large. Principal there is very concerned as well. I think of others as we work with the city. Buchanan's locked in on Torrey Pines, and to get in and out of that community with that population as it is, there's we have the room space. But that is a challenge. In addition to, if we get too large, we will have to change some of the infrastructure. That's not, I'm going to say, it's not the greatest thing to do, to be able to have to take play space away for a parking lot, to be able to park additional staff, families, or whatnot. And so that is a concern for Buchanan. I heard nothing but positives that come from the middle school. They really thought the parents did a great job on middle school boundaries. Also, Cole Canyon shares in that same sentiment of Cole Canyon, has kind of the lock on that portion of the community, but I know over the years, we've had to place more portables at Cole Canyon, and which is taken away. It's a pretty small postage stamp size facility, and being able to have more play space, I know would be welcomed by the principal and the staff there. And so those two school sites have definitely provided that input.
And if you look at the projection chart, especially at the elementaries, because you have the middle school one balances, even with some minor adjustments, they're still relatively balanced. But thank you for pulling up that slide. The recommendations that the committee came up with, you can see that in the first column that the enrollment where it is right now, and like Cole Canyon specifically, that enrollment still stays above 1,000 because we didn't change the boundary in any of these recommendations. So, and you can see then that, like we mentioned, Buchanan gets a little large. So there's concern about what do we do at Buchanan because of the way that those boundaries, the recommendations, they still end up rather large. And we see Murrieta Elementary School, again, it goes to 1,200. So though there's recommendations, what's there, in even as early as just 5 years from now, we're not balanced.
So is there a way to redraw that?
I think if we were to fine tune some of the little planning blocks that are in there, still taking into account that, again, the recommendation of the community and our committee gives us a really good start. But I think there's little neighborhoods that could use a little adjustment still that might bring us to a better balance.
I'm curious, what's the team for the district recommendation for the elementary schools, kind of a nice number, so they're more spread out?
Like I said, we've had some discussion internally. I think we'd love to be able to see all of our schools under 1,000. You know, looking at trying to get our elementary schools to be more similar than dissimilar, but I'll invite Faith to make comment on that.
I was going to agree with you. I think like we feel like a sweet spot's about
a sweet spot. That's what I was asking.
800, you know, 750, 800 is a really nice spot. Once you get over that, you start to feel it, and over 1,000, you definitely feel it. It just impacts, you know, discipline. It impacts admin support, counsel, you know, just all of those folks that we've kind of aligned like 1%, 2%, you know, and so then you start to just feel that it's harder to address all the issues. So it's our perfect scenario would be 750, 800 would be amazing, but we just know.
Is that
No.
realistically
That's not
feasible?
realistic right now, yeah.
I
Of course,
just,
math, 11 schools.
we can dream, we can dream.
Yes, we
Yeah,
can dream.
but I think at the end of the day, trying to become more balanced and being able to have safe ingress, egress to all school sites, provide an adequate play space for our students. And 1,200 at Murrieta L, we just built those 13 new classrooms there. We do have, that is our oldest site, you know, and so we have a lot of portables there that are there, but they certainly need some love.
Okay.
And that's where, like, I have concern, and I'll be totally transparent, selfishly, for trustee area 3. We already are seeing the impact of the apartment complex that's being built on Whitewood and the impact that it's having on traffic. You know, since I moved here in 2017, I've never thought of Whitewood as like a major thoroughfare. Now it is. Now you actually sit in traffic on Whitewood and nobody lives there yet, right? They're still building it. And so the prospect of, you know, how many families will be introduced into this once those are actually populated, we're already feeling the impact of it. Going in and out of Rail Ranch is a nightmare today. You know, that's the school that my kids went to. And so the prospect of people coming down Whitewood under this recommendation to attend Rail Ranch, I don't know that that little windy neighborhood could absorb that because they're having a hard time today. And then I know that I've shared this before, but my kids had an 1.5-hour bus ride from our home to Chevala. You're talking about kids in my immediate neighborhood spending probably 4 hours coming and going each day to go to Dorothy. And I just have to imagine that that has a degradatory effect on their experience of learning, their ability to participate in extracurricular activities. And so I have the concerns specific to that sort of the catchment area. And I know there's not an easy solution because, you know, there's only so many schools, but we do have to think about, is it in the best interest of our students for them to spend 3 to 4 hours a day sitting in a bus?
So I would just like to say, hopefully, we would be able to just balance out the elementary a little bit. I mean, if we could get the schools to at least like 1,000 and not go above 1,000, so that would definitely help, like you were saying. So hopefully there's opportunities to make that a little bit more balanced for the elementary. And then can you just speak to what will happen if we don't make these changes to the boundaries soon? Because obviously, if in a perfect world, we wouldn't have to change anything, right? But we have to. And what will happen if we don't do anything?
I
Like,
think
what's
if
going
you
to
look
happen?
at on the conceptual projected enrollment slide that is currently up, you can see we have some schools that are really full. If we choose not to shift our boundaries, we have to start looking at overflow schools. And so it would be taking busing resources from people who live in the boundary and starting to bus them across town. You know, historically in Marietta, I think prior to my time, maybe in my early years here, that was when we were growing so fast, we had to do that. But the reality, if you look at Thompson Middle School right now, Thompson Middle School doesn't even have an additional classroom really to work with. And so any new families coming to the west side, moving forward, we would have to, you know, look for other opportunities for them to go to different schools, just because we currently do not have space. Cole, Marietta L, and Thompson are even, you know, feeling the impacts. We added 13 classrooms over to MES, took a few portables off. That brought our saturation level down a little bit, but again, as the apartments come up, and if you look at the our current boundaries and versus the other ones, more kids are going to be coming. We don't just know, that's kind of the crystal ball that we don't have, is like how many kids are going to be in those apartments. But I think it's the same. I think why we're here is really trying to be prepared for that, so we can have adequate space in our schools.
And I just want to piggyback on that part, which also, and though it's not part of the lines on the maps, the implementation timeline gives us time to make adjustments. So if we have to do something sooner or later, we still have time. But the implementation timeline also buys us time to, one, gently move those families, especially as they come in new or matriculate up a grade. It gives us time to see how is it going to fill, how quickly is, and who's coming to those apartments. So the implementation timeline and the attendance boundaries, though they seem separate, are actually somewhat integrated, right? And so what we've tried to do is that with the timeline is give us time to make those adjustments, which also includes staffing and the impact on staffing. How do we move staff when we see a grade level start to grow or a school start to grow? We move staff accordingly. And that buys us time to do that very gently with both families and staff. But this is intended to give us, in essence, a long runway to make the adjustments. But even kind of but we also like this to have, in essence, to use Darren's term, a long shelf life. We'd like this to, we really would not want to come back here and do this whole process again like in 3 years or 4 years or 5 years. So we're trying to create capacity, or to allow capacity to happen at schools. And this does also take into account how we deal with transfers. We've been pretty tight on transfers at certain schools, and they remain large because of the neighborhood, not because of transfers. And so we continue to apply all of these tools to try and find a really balanced approach, but the current boundaries just don't do it. So if we didn't do anything, we end up in a short order doing overflow busing to these schools anyway. And that also means that and then busing becomes a really, well, that's a new hot topic, as we all know.
Right, so I just wanted to point that out, because I know a lot of districts are having to go through this, the one I work for as well, redistricting and things with the boundaries, and that this is a slow rollout, and if you look at the slide on page 7, the proposed implementation table, it is a slow roll, and it is mostly affecting, the TK and K students who haven't even been in school yet. So I appreciate that that your committee did that and how you rolled it out like that. And I just want to point out too, I don't know if it was, we moved here 8 years ago and my kids were in middle school, and I came here and I wanted Thompson Middle School, and I met with the principal, and I'm a teacher, so I was like, okay, I should have some kind of, and I have some friends that work there, and I took my kids and they were impacted. They had no more room, and I was really disappointed. And so then the homeschool was Shabela, and I went to that principal and took my kids, and we went there. They did not want to go there because they had in their mind, Thompson, for whatever reasons, friends and went to Chevela and they weren't happy, but guess what? They loved it. And I just am pointing that out because even though it might be uncomfortable, kids are resilient, and wherever they go, like they're gonna have a great experience because I think we have really talented educators at all the schools. So I think that maybe kind of being a little bit open-minded about that as well.
Thank you for that comment.
I just have a quick comment, and I'm a little, like, everyone knows we all have very different opinions. By the way, our family experienced the same thing. There was a little bit of trepidation about one of the schools, and it was amazing. It wasn't that long ago, we were talking about how important it was. We needed a school, we were gonna buy a school, and then lo and behold, I think Dr. Anderson, you go ahead, say you were right. I didn't know what he was even talking about, but we had a decrease in enrollment. So even as we talked, that was 6 months ago. So we're projecting out to 2035. We have no idea. Because one of the things that I've read, articles, even while we were at CSBA, you heard all these different people talking about enrollment shrinking, and a lot of things I'm reading about and I'm experiencing and seeing with my own eyes is the affordability issue of our area, very, very difficult. And more importantly, this next generation is not having kids at the same rate we did and starting families. So traffic and drivers don't necessarily equate to children, and same with apartments. And those apartments are expensive. I know my son was trying to get into one. So I'm just saying that personal experiences does not necessarily mean those projections are spot on, considering I felt like we are a little bit off. And we'll know more as we roll this out, right?
Yeah, you know,
we'll know in September.
Yeah,
I mean, but for the hope of the district, I'll just say, I hope that we don't continue to see declined enrollment, because then we're going to have all kinds of other issues, right?
I second that.
Let's all hope that that doesn't continue.
Yes, but it's important to note, it is actually a reality at this moment.
It is,
right?
I said I'm not going to debate that at all. You know, again, the lion's share is, again, you know, the TK, those are half-day programs, but they certainly impact our big picture of enrollment district-wide.
We spent a lot of time on this. Are there more questions, comments, recommendations? We've taken some notes, and in terms of process, our next step will be to take these comments that you've given us tonight, review them, we've made notes here, make some edits with Andrew, and preview them with the board, again, to have your input. The next step would be to either continue the discussion as a discussion item, but it is scheduled to be an action item at the next board meeting, okay?
On the action item, just so that I'm clear, because some of these you were saying, oh, we can tweak this, we can tweak that. And there were some tweaks that I'd point out in the meeting that we had. I know everyone's been able to give some input a little bit, like this looks a little strange. This is not the appropriate time to make those tweaks or to indicate there's a tweak that.
If you were looking at a specific map right now and you wanted to give us, like, hey, I think this neighborhood should go this direction, we would gladly take that at this time.
I think it would be important to take a look at anything on the east side of Washington in my district. There is a neighborhood, and it looks like Cole Canyon. And to your point, Cole Canyon didn't shrink at all. And it just is an odd carve-out. It's an odd carve-out. It looks like it would make more sense to go to E. Hill Current.
Okay.
And I think that's something we should take a look
Noted. You said that to me the other day, and it's noted in our minutes to make the adjustment with Mr. Bishop.
Yeah.
Thank you for making that comment again. Are there other specific, Ms. Munoz, I hear your part about the middle school map of the students going out to McElhaney from the Rail Ranch area. That middle school is a challenge, whatever we do, to try and find balance on that one, on any of the recommendations, but we can certainly review what that looks like. Would you mind going back to the elementary one? Are there any other considerations about elementary that people would like to maybe comment on? Because again,
My only request would be to see if we can try. I know we can't get the sweet spot, but if there's a way to do it where you can balance them to under 1,000? I don't even know what that would look like, but
Yeah, we've already started
present that.
taking a look at if there's an opportunity, and we believe there are some opportunities for you to review.
Perfect.
And I can have those to you short order.
All right, are we prepared to end discussion on this?
Thank you guys so much for your engagement this evening.
All right,
Appreciate
thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Bishop. All right, on to G14, adoption of resolution number 2425-14, accounting of development fees for fiscal year 2023-2024 in Fund 25. Call for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and I'm going to go to a vote, but I have realized I made a huge mistake in all this time. There's a student preferential vote. And what I would like to acknowledge is we appreciate your time. There's a lot of mundane things that we've gone through to this point. I'm going to assume when I call for a vote that you're voting either an assent or saying no. So when I say anyone opposed, you say something. We'll note that it was a student who said yes or no, especially if you say no. And that way we save a little bit of time because there was a lot here. So it was part of my rookie mistake, but I do want to acknowledge that you were here and that I'm going to assume if we took a vote of G1 through G12, you were in assent with the rest of us. Would that be accurate? All right, wonderful. Okay, so, and now all in favor for G14?
Aye.
Any opposed? None heard. Motion carries. G15, adoption of resolution number 24-25-15, self-certifying increased federal micro purchase threshold. That calls for a motion.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Any discussion? None? And a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. And G16, Williams Uniform Complaint Quarterly Report. The board is in receipt of this information. And we had none.
Can we have some discussion on that?
Sure.
Just because I didn't know what it was. And I thought, if I don't know what this is, then other people probably don't know what it is either.
Sure.
You
Let me
know?
give you a brief description.
Yeah.
Sure. So years ago, there was a federal state suit about adequacy of textbook materials and what was being supplied and how that notification goes out, and also facilities, if they're adequate or not. And so it's called the Williams Act. In every classroom in the state of California, there is a little bulletin in multiple languages, depending on the community, about what the Williams Act is, about adequacy of textbook materials, instructional materials, and also a survey of the facility. And so each year we actually get a Williams Act facility review, and we count the number of textbooks we have available to students in all of its forms, digital or hard copy, and make sure we have enough for every student in every subject that's required. So each quarter is part of the act. The number of complaints, if we have any, comes to the board so the board knows if there's been any complaints. And since I've been here, there haven't been any complaints. There's probably been I don't even know if we know when the last complaint where it was. So most districts in the state of California have learned to manage this pretty well, but it's still a requirement that we report quarterly to the board any complaints that might have arisen, just the number.
Yeah, and that's why I didn't want to just blow by it because, you know, as a new board member, as a parent and as a citizen, you know, I sat in the galley and I heard people come up in public comment, and I was oftentimes left with the impression that like our schools were in disrepair, kids have terrible materials or they don't have what they need, like Chicken Little, the sky is falling, right? And so when I asked questions about this and I heard that same response that like, nobody can remember when the last time was that we actually had a complaint on any of these categories, you know, instructional materials, teacher vacancies or credentials, facility conditions, emergency conditions. I remember a gentleman coming and, you know, he had a lot to say about emergency response at one of the schools. I don't remember the specifics, but I thought like the public should know that there is not even a memory of the last time that our district had a complaint in any of these critical categories. And I think that that's something that we should celebrate because it's another indicator for us about how great our district really is.
Like
Because we're not allowed to respond to public comments. So people make comments like that, and you can't say anything, even if you know it's not true. It's frustrating, but yeah.
I think I would like to clarify, you can actually respond. You are not encouraged to, you're discouraged to, it's unwise to.
So it's
I think
Brown
that's
Act
better.
violation.
So the response, to be really clear, a member of staff, myself,
Yeah.
or a trustee can respond if it's on the agenda. Okay? If it's not on the agenda, then the trustees should not respond. But we do respond to people's concerns and complaints. There's a group of staff out there who oftentimes intercede with people as they're coming in and out. And as you know, you've heard public comment. Some of the comments are rather,
Personal.
we'll just say personal or extreme, and some of them are really valid and validating, and we really want to dig in deep to them. We also receive comment cards, but sometimes comment cards don't include contact information. So then we're guessing at who this person was. So the reply or response is always a tricky one to do, but we do encourage people to stop and chat with a staff member. Someone who has a complaint about a textbook material or a condition at school really should talk to their school administrator. They should just say, I'm concerned my kiddo doesn't seem to have the right textbook or a textbook or something. And because that's the first line. And from there, that administrator can call on this building and we'll provide them with support.
Yep, and to that point, I was also going to mention the facilities. When you go on your tours, as everyone does, my number one question is always, what are your big issues? Where is there problems? Because of course, we need money allocated to take care of those things. And it's amazing what the facilities we actually have. And we've done a great job in a lot of areas. There's definitely some needs for sure, but.
Yeah, we have a lot to be proud of in this district.
Yep.
The work that our all of the staff does is just remarkable. It's like a city within a city, and they do a really, really great job making sure that our kids are safe and that they have an adequate learning environment. And so anyways, I just didn't want to blow past this because I think it's pretty remarkable.
All right, wonderful. Ms. Shoemaker, just congratulations on being Student of the Month. My apologies one more time. I now call for a motion to adjourn the Board of Education meeting at 8:54, I think, 8:53.
7:53.
Ooh, my bad, that's an 8. I'm reading the clock, it's
Maybe
been
it
late.
just feels an hour longer.
7:53. All right, call for a motion.
I second.
All right, moving second. All in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none.